Hey everybody, before we begin, I want you all to know that this conversation was recorded sometime like at the end of August, early September. So, it's been about 6 months. That is all completely my bad. I haven't been focusing on the channel as much, but I hope to get back into it. I've been really enjoying streaming on Twitch, and it's something that's, doesn't take up as much time as videos. But yeah, for whatever reason, I just kind of needed to take a breather. So, hoping to come back to videos relatively soon. I've got some ideas that I want to start making a reality. So, although this video isn't the most current video, so all of our info about Halo Infinite might not be completely up to date, it's more a conversation about the state of Halo, what Devin really thinks about Halo currently. This is kind of his project. He set up a PowerPoint and everything like that. And Devin, I'm sorry this video took me so long to do. Even though I know you mentioned about maybe not even releasing it. But no, we're putting it out there because I think you made some interesting points. And I don't know if you all will agree with Devin. I don't really know how Halo fans feel about Halo at the moment. But I do think it was an interesting conversation. So, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. If not, I'll interject something from what I recorded before, because this is like the third or fourth take. I want you to know the recording session was a nightmare. My computer kept crashing. Surprise, surprise, if you are in my streams ever. But streaming on twitch.tv/VGSquirrel. Oh, just in case you didn't know. But basically, the recording for this was not great. I tried recording through Zoom and Discord. There was a lot of technical issues, and for whatever reason, through our capturing, everything's kind of jittery. So you'll see the mouse movements are a bit jittery throughout the video. However, in order to make the presentation just a bit more, a bit more entertaining to watch, I did grab whatever video clips that Devin used and then kind of just pasted it over the actual screen capture. So if you see the video screen over my face or something, that's why. But yeah, if you do watch this, I do recommend watching the whole thing. I know that's a lot, but I think some valid points are made throughout the whole thing, and we kind of circle back to points and things of that nature. So enjoy our 3-hour conversation about Halo. Now. Hey everybody! So, this is our third attempt to try this, if not more. So basically, we are doing another discussion on Halo. Devin has presented us with a presentation. And before we begin, just letting you know, I'm not the highest energy. Some stuff's been going on this week. If you follow me on social media, you're probably aware of that. So if I'm not the highest energy, I apologize for that. Also now we've had some new news with Halo Infinite since our last discussion, which was about the end of July. The main ones were Halo Infinite has been delayed, and it's not going to launch with the Xbox Series X, which is probably bad for the Series X. Probably not as bad for Halo Infinite, at least that's the way I see it. I think any more time is better for that game right now, especially after fan outcry. Next, there was a rumor that the original Xbox One version was going to get canceled, but that was just a rumor. Correct, Devin? And then there has been new people added, well, new old people, right, added to 343 Industries, and not quite a leadership change, but just some new elements, new old elements back there. Am I correct on all that?
So far, so good, man.
Okay. So we've been having some issues with the computer crashing, so there might be some cuts at some points. I see that just exited
I
out for some
didn't
reason.
touch anything.
I figured. One thing you may notice is Devin. See, on our previous recordings, Devin, you were a bit laggy, but I think you're pretty good right now. But the screen is a little laggy at times. We're doing our best here. So that's all we can do.
This is the best that two nitwits can do on a Saturday night.
With one computer crashing and then one computer not loading or whatever. It's just all over the place. So excuse the smoothness and all that, but we're doing our best.
All right. Can we get into it?
All right, Devin. So, get into it. Present however you want to start. I will add my thoughts if I have them. But this is mainly Devin saying, "Oh, Devin is." If you didn't watch if you didn't watch, are you on the top on yours?
Yes.
On you.
I'm always.
So I'm holding you up. So Devin here. So Devin is way more knowledgeable about Halo, and especially Halo's lore. Well, no, he's more knowledgeable about everything about Halo. But I play Halo very much more casually. I mainly play multiplayer. I've barely touched the story. So this is pretty much someone who pays attention to the stuff telling it to the common man. So...
Well, I'm telling it to more than just you, Darren. It's whoever wound up clicking on this video, but yeah.
Of course.
Look, I don't want to sound pedantic because I don't know it all. I'm not a know-it-all, but I do know at least more than you. I'm not saying that's to be mean, but we've been friends for years. I think we understand. But for anyone not watching this, I just want them to understand I'm not someone who claims to know everything about Halo, like you just said. Right. I wouldn't consider myself an expert because there are plenty of people who have actually read every single book, every comic book, who have been to the...
Okay.
I've read most of the books. I've read a good portion of them, but I haven't read every single one. So I'm just saying, thanks for calling me an expert, but I am not...
Well... I'd say you are more of an expert than I'd say 90% of the population.
I don't know. But anyway, we'll get into that as soon as this loads. I didn't click anything, and it just...
it's just...
So give it a moment.
Zoom being Zoom.
In the meantime, while this is loading, if you have seen the previous video in which we talked... God bless your soul if you made it through all 4.5 hours of us talking about the Xbox July 23rd conference. We talked about it, Halo, for 2.5 hours, but part of the reason why this is sort of like a reprisal for that video is because I yammered on incoherently, which I do tend to do. I'm a bit verbose.
I don't think so, but...
No, it's what I do. Okay, why is this not working anymore? Okay, that's a good sign. Anyway, my point is that I wanted to do this to keep me more on the rails.
Shoot. Here, hold on.
What is going on, Darren?
It's not that, but I'm exiting full screen on this real quick because you could not minimize. Okay. Here, hold on. I need to pull up. I need to pull up Discord on my end because there's little beepings, and I want to make sure that doesn't continue to happen.
Okay, but I just don't think it's a good idea to have Discord up while we have Zoom up.
Oh no! I'm logging out of Discord.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I don't know if that. I don't even think that'll pull up on the Zoom meeting. You want to refresh it?
I don't know how exactly.
Just try the little refresh button in the on the actual browser.
All right. Because I'm not clicking anything, and it's. Well, again, this is what two dinguses on a Sunday night have to deal with.
This is what this whole.
Yeah, it's 10:51 our time, and we've been at this since 6:30. So we finally were able to get it to work. And
that it wasn't even the full conference, the full conference talk from last time.
All right. Well, that's a good sign.
Devin, isn't there a way to download it? Because that's what I did.
You had to download it because it was from my OneDrive. This is on my OneDrive. I don't need to download it. You know what I mean? It's downloaded.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's here. It's just taking its sweet time. You might have to edit this part out while we're waiting. Sorry to cause you more work, but it's not like I did anything intentionally.
How
All right.
dare you, sir?
Here we go. Okay, so let's stop dawdling and actually start talking Halo. So
if
it'll load.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it loaded on your side?
Not yet. Okay, it's getting there. All right, while Aaron Eckhart's gorgeous face is loading, here we go. Okay. I called this, well, before it got seared. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Signs Halo is no longer fresh. Halo, as far as profitability goes, has hit an all-time high as of the recent 10 years or so. But if that's the case, why does Halo feel like it's not exactly doing so hot? Especially with all this news and rumors that have surfaced about Halo Infinite's development, which is obviously troubled in some way, shape, or form, and they're just not willing to let us know just how deep the rabbit hole goes at 343, which is kind of worrying, to say the least. But for someone like me, and probably like anyone who clicked on this video, if you care that much about Halo, to go to this channel and find the Halo videos that are here, especially if you watch the first one, this is par for the course for 343 Industries since they took over. This is something that didn't surprise most of us. And so I wanted to articulate into better words, or more concise words, what exactly makes Halo feel like it's no longer fresh, and why, if it's so profitable, how come it doesn't seem to have that same appeal as it used to. And so when we say something is rotten in the state of Denmark, obviously it's taken from Shakespeare, like you can see down here, and it shows that everything is not good at the top of a political hierarchy. Mm-hmm. Now, going away from icky yucky plays like Shakespeare, as you might be thinking, which shame on you if you do, they're fantastic pieces of literature. We also have movies. And as you might recognize, this is a film, one of the Dark Knight trilogies from, I think, Christopher Nolan. And the reason why I included it is because A, it summarizes my thoughts of, I guess, this entire presentation, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. And B, Ryan Darcy, one of the lead designers for 343 Industries himself, claims, as hopefully we'll get to later on, that whenever they talk about what it means to be a Spartan at 343 Industries, inevitably Batman winds up wedging his way into the conversation. So I thought it was only fitting to play this.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
So either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And if I haven't made it clear by now, my position is that I think Bungie did their hand at Halo better than 343 did, and it should have died a hero when Bungie was already claiming it was done and over with, around the time of, for me, that time is anywhere between 2007 and 2010. In Bungie Vidocs, you can, and I didn't put them here just because I already have plenty of videos in here already. In Bungie Vidocs, if you watch them, many of the producers and developers and all that, they were even aware that around 2010, when Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach were coming out, that Bungie, or that Halo wasn't the top anymore. After 2007, Halo 3 had the top spot of the most played and most popular, whatever the statistic was, Halo game on the Xbox 360 console for like 3 years in a row, which is nothing to scoff at, especially for back then. And so it was there for a reason. It was a true, genuine piece of art. But like I said, under 343 Industries, Halo's only become more profitable. And I'll get into part of why in a minute. Hint, hint, transmedia and microtransactions. But, So the point is, this is a graphic of the scales of justice, used to weigh, I guess in law, you have like evidence and whatever. But for me, I thought this would be a good representation of roughly the 10 years that Bungie had with the games and what you think of them, and roughly the 10 years that 343 Industries has had with Halo games and what you think of them. And these scales are level, but obviously mine.
Oh, okay.
Oh, am I skipping?
You cut out there for a second, sorry.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right.
Your level.
Okay. All I'm saying is, for me, Bungie carries more weight. So if this was my personal scales of justice set, Bungie would be weighing much lower than 343 Industries, and that's a good thing. Your scale might have just the opposite. It might have something a little bit teetered this way, a little bit that way, regardless. Either way, I don't think it's fair to say that Bungie and 343 Industries are exactly equal. They are inherently different teams, different people, different guiding philosophies on how to make games. So I don't think that anyone in their right minds truly thinks that Bungie and 343 Industries are equal like this. But again, if you can state a reason why they are equal, then maybe you'll persuade me.
I can tell you a reason why I think they're not equal right away. I think if 343 started out with Halo, I don't think anybody would have grabbed. Like, I don't think it would have been the game that it is today.
That is a fantastic point.
The only reason 343 has the
franchise,
any sort of relevance is because they're grabbing this franchise from someone who already scored several touchdowns. So
that's a great way to put it, Darren. And Frank O'Connor himself will admit, and has before on camera in an interview. Unfortunately, that's another one that I didn't add here, but trust me, there'll be plenty. He says himself there are differences they're aware of as far as how Bungie was built or came to be versus 343 Industries, and he should know. Right. I mean, he was a community manager during the Bungie days, and in fact, he's one of the few people who are still working at 343 Industries who got their start at Bungie. So it's true. They made Halo from scratch. Alex Seropian and Joe Staten started as just two dudes in college, or maybe it was Jason Jones. I forget. It's been so long. No worries. But the point is, they started as just some people who naturally came together, thought, hey, I'm into business, I'm into creative, video game stuff. Let's make a game of our own, and let's make it totally break the mold from anything else because we like playing games our way. And they were young, they were stupid, they made the fair share of mistakes. As I mentioned in the last video we talked about, Myth, their Marathon 2 or one of those games, had a bug that uninstalled your basically whole computer, and it cost them about $1 million. And so if Microsoft hadn't acquired them and relieved them of their financial burdens, we might have never even had Halo. And think of what a world that would be, right? So they had to come up from nothing and really prove themselves, and really ran wild with this franchise for 3 games, let's say, depending on what you feel about ODST and Reach. Whereas, like you said, Darren, 343, they were a conglomerate bunch handpicked by Microsoft employees, specifically Bonnie Ross, who at the time was a franchise manager at Microsoft since like 2004. And so she got to pick whatever people she wanted to make this game and to continue on this franchise her way. But that was the deal. Even though Bungie thought it was kind of getting stale on the way out, well, they had no choice because the publisher, who owned the rights legally since 2001 of the IP, decided to give it to another studio. So with Bungie's blessing or not, 343 had the reins. So I'm not mad at them for that, but it is a clear distinction between how they came to be. And I don't think that that's a good or a bad thing. That's neither here nor there, but it is something
it's just
to
a
consider.
different thing.
So this is all subjective. Let's move on to talking objectively about Halo. And when we talk objectively, we use empirically derived points of data. And what better way to do that in a quantifiable poll? This is a poll from debate.org, and it asks a simple question. Who made the better Halo game, Bungie or 343? And what do you think the results were, right? Well, as you might expect, 91% prefer the way that Bungie games were made, and 9, not even 10%, prefer the way that 343 Industries games were made. However, it's not just plain and simple, okay, we're done, Bungie was best. There are some grains of salt, let's call them, that you have to take in mind and consider when you're looking at objective, quantifiable, empirically derived data. For example, there's no date on how recently this poll was taken. If this poll was taken from, say, 2012, the only thing we'd have to judge 343 Industries on would be Halo 4 and Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, I think. That's not very fair. So that would kind of invalidate some of these results. Secondly, just look at the phrasing. Who made the better Halo game? Bungie? Yes, green, thumbs up. Or 343, red, thumbs down, no. I mean, that phrasing psychologically skews the results no matter what. If they had just switched the Bungie to 343's place, how much do you think that would have changed that 91% approval rating, right? Maybe not all that much, but it's still significant, I bet.
My guess, 4%. Maybe.
Well, we should take our own poll where we do this exact same thing on this exact same site and just switch,
Yeah, but honestly.
Yeah.
Curious if someone's done that. Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? I'd have to go back to the website and find out. But the point is, you also don't know the exact sample size. It could have been 5 people or 500 who took this poll. I mean, again, these are just some of the grains of salt, some of the things you need to consider and factor in when you judge a poll online. But let's move on. The point is that either way, an overwhelming amount of people will say objectively that they prefer the Bungie games. And if not this debate.org poll, you can find polls like these all over the web. And again, there might be a few outliers, fringe, random things here and there. But for the most part, the consensus is that Bungie did Halo better. So you can have your opinion that you like the 343 Industries games. But regardless of your feelings, the facts are that the majority of people feel like Bungie did Halo better. And I think they've earned that. But, let's take a look at another poll. We have sample size, roughly 1,500 people. And of course, it makes sense that an overwhelmingly large amount are male. Also, look at just how many are 18 to 24 years old. I was thinking more would be in the 15 to 17-year-old range, but still, that's the second highest. But still, there's a huge difference between 62 and 22%. But still, you got to also wonder, did someone 65 or above actually take this? Or do you think someone who's maybe 14 said, I'm going to put I'm 65 or older,
Yeah. And then, there are... have you already said where you got this poll from?
Well, this is from Reddit, so go ahead.
Yeah. A lot of, if you're a younger kid, first off, I don't know how much younger people do go on Reddit. It might be mostly 18 and above people go on Reddit. And then also, I know, sometimes when you're a kid, it's you got to be 18 or older to use this website. And everyone goes, oh, I'm 18, So that always skews it. That's why, just coming from a YouTube perspective, when I see views on videos, I'm a lot of these kids are using their parents' accounts and things like that. Yeah. Exactly. Reddit, I don't think anyone's using their parents' account, but I think they're making...
I don't agree, or I don't trust what I see on Reddit at face value. So while I don't trust these exact numbers and figures and wouldn't bet my life on them, I do think that it makes sense that a majority of people who are involved in Halo are around this age demographic and are predominantly male.
Also, to give you an idea, Devin and I are both 25 and above, which
I'm
we were
26. You're above that.
27.
So,
so
we'd be in the 14%, baby.
Yeah, but also it's weird because we were in middle school when Halo 3 came out, 2007.
Wow.
So
yeah, and there are people I know who were in even university when Halo 3 came out. So it's we're not even the oldest of the bunch, the old guard, the vanguard from the 2001 Christmas, getting an Xbox console and whatever.
We were actually on the younger side.
Yeah, we're on the youngins, all things considered.
So that's what's so surprising, that it says 18 to 24.
Yeah.
And when was this? Do we know when this poll was taken?
Within the last 2 years, I want to say.
Okay.
I think that's when the Reddit post was, but I didn't include
so not
the date
enough
here.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, still, but
so
still.
Not enough to skew it. much.
Yeah, but still, again, this is a poll that don't take at face value. Consider the following, like Bill Nye. All right, so once this loads, if it loads, please load. This is a better way to phrase it. This is a professor named Eddie Wu who does a couple of YouTube videos of usually things that deal with mathematics, but just listen to him if you don't believe me.
All right.
Into data. For example, if you do a survey of people, right, you don't get information from everyone, you only get information from the people who fill out the survey. And sometimes that will bias you towards hearing from particular kinds of people. For example, on restaurant reviews, right, classically, you've got, remember I talked about this, this gap in the data in here? This is a classic thing that you see on restaurant reviews. Why do you think that is? Think about this. Will?
People either rate the restaurant they really loved it or really hated it, but if it was average, like,
It's like,
yeah, I'm not gonna rank.
Very good. People only rate if they're like, I had an amazing experience, or I felt sick, it was terrible, the service was awful. If you're kind of here in the middle, you're just kind of meh. That didn't draw any response from me that, you know, pushed me, motivated me to spend time to fill out a survey. So we call this the voluntary bias, right? Because it's a volunteer thing, you don't get all of the information there. There's many different forms of bias. You actually can see a full list there that we're going to explore a bit later on, but I just wanted you to get a sense of what this is talking about and what data is relevant to it. Okay?
So again, talking about what data is relevant, Halo Waypoint is a huge point of contention for many people like me because, you know, a lot of times, like Eddie Wu just explained so well in his video, you have people who either really hated or really loved the experience, let's say, of a Halo game instead of a franchise, or what
Also,
were you going to say?
You're on the wrong
I'm
slide.
aware.
Oh, okay. And then, because I just don't know if you have it pulled up on your...
I'm aware.
Okay. Also, just a note, if I didn't mention it earlier, sorry to interrupt you, Devin. The video quality coming through me, it looks like, just pay attention to the audio. The video is not as important, correct, Devin?
Yeah, it's more about the words, not necessarily about the footage itself.
Okay, because it does look like, for me, it looks like a Game & Watch game where he's like...
I'm sorry. There's nothing
Oh,
I can
no,
do
you're
about
good.
that.
I'm just letting the audience know. I'm aware. Just listen to what the guy's saying. Sorry about that, Devin. I just wanted to let you know.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, as I was saying, or rather as Eddie Wu was saying, either people who really like their experience or dislike their experience will volunteer their time and effort and experience to go onto forums, threads, Yelp reviews, whatever you want to say, and either sing the praise that they have because they had a really good experiences, or give their harsh criticism. A lot of the times it's babble and just people, you know, putting out slurs and, you know, X-rated things just because they don't know how else to explain how they feel and all this other thing. But it's still criticism that can be derived from that negative feedback. And on places like Halo Waypoint, for whatever the rhyme or reason, they simply heavily moderate or block or lock threads altogether from people who heavily criticize 343 Industries. No matter who you are, how long you've been on Halo Waypoint, if you say something bad about 343 Industries and a moderator catches his or catches your post, it's probably getting locked. Not every single one, but Halo Waypoint is notorious for this. And why this is important is because if you only have a place where no matter what you do, you only see the positive feedback from what you do, then surely you must think that you can't do anything wrong and that everything you've been doing has been great and well received and fantastic, right? Good job.
Right.
But that's not reflective of reality. And therein lies the problem. And it's part of why I believe, again, the whole theme of this is that Halo has continued to grow stale because, yes, there is an audience for the 343 games that has been garnered over the years. But at the same time, a lot of the things that they tell 343 to implement in their future games isn't what the broad majority of people want. For example, from Halo Waypoint, Josh Holmes, one of the leaders who came up with Halo 4, I think it was creative director or some fancy title like that, he did a poll taken through Halo Waypoint, which you had to be invited to through email or something. I forget. Yeah. So like if we had known about that poll, maybe we would have participated, but many people didn't even know about this poll. And the poll simply asked, how would you prefer Sprint be included in Halo 4 or future Halo titles or something like that? And it's been deleted, so I couldn't pull it up. So, excuse me if I don't know the exact verbiage or the exact percentage, but all I do remember is that he asked if Sprint is something that would be popular and in what form you would want it to take in a future Halo title. And overwhelmingly, people said they were for Sprint because this website was taken, or this poll was taken on this heavily biased website. Well, in response to this, when the results were published, people did their own polls, again, kind of like on debate.org, across all kinds of other social media sites. And by and large, the consensus by most people was that they didn't want Sprint, or they wanted it in a very, very limited capacity in future Halo titles. So Josh Holmes, since the poll has since been deleted, probably due to its sheer controversy, and Josh Holmes no longer works at 343 Industries and hasn't in a while. I don't know if he was pressured to step down, if he had voluntarily resigned, or if he was just straight up fired. We don't know. Same thing with Brian Reed, who people by and large deem responsible for the horrible storytelling of Halo 5 Guardians, which we'll get into that in a minute. Don't worry. But for now, what we see in front of you is Halo 4. And so I guess what I'm saying is, if you take all of your feedback from one place that's essentially an echo chamber, it's dangerous. But we'll get into that more maybe in a future video or something. But anyway, here we have the story for Halo 4, and every piece of transmedia, you can say, which really is just merchandise, connected to the core story. And what's interesting is, for other Halo titles, there are TV commercials or internet commercials you'd see on YouTube or whatnot, and that's to be expected. I don't have any qualms with the commissioning or scanned. In fact, I think they're pretty good quality commercials, all said and done. What I do take issue with are the 2 trilogies that you had to read in order to understand what was going on in Halo 4. And don't just take my word for it. There will be other videos that come up here in future slides that'll explain that it's not just me who felt this way. People who were seasoned veterans of Halo playing, more than you or I, felt floored when they started Halo 4 and had no idea who the Didact was and what he was doing there, why he was evil. He was just a generic bad guy, and we didn't know why. That's not good. And that's, I think, part of why Halo continued to grow stale. And we see that again with War Chief Escharum in Halo Infinite's demo. He just seems like a generic bad guy. We've never seen him before. I don't even think there's a book about him yet. He's not even in Halo Wars 2, the game where the Banished are apparently from. And he just seems like a cheesy, generic Saturday morning cartoon guy, much like the Didact was and is if you hadn't read the 3 books. And notice, at the time of this publication, only 2 of those 3 books in the trilogy were out, and Halo 4 had been out for a year already. So if you wanted to read these books anyway, well, you can't even finish them. So, and the Forward Unto Dawn web series, I could take it or leave it. I actually thought that the storytelling in this web series, the director or directors in charge, because I thought it was a pair of brothers for some reason. I might be wrong about that. I looked it up on IMDb a long time ago. The point is, these directors actually got a fair sense of how to communicate the Halo mythos through film. But in the games, it's so sad when this looks like it had better production quality than Halo 4's campaign. Yeah. And granted, the campaign looked gorgeous. Part of the reason I think that is because, as Bonnie Ross admits in an interview with IGN in 2019, she had originally wanted Halo 4 to be the console debut title with the Xbox One. But Phil Spencer told her no, and publisher to developer, I think she just kind of had to go along with it. And ultimately, Halo 4 was published at the end of life cycle for the Xbox 360. But one of the pros of that was it had such gorgeous visuals for the 360 at the time.
Would that have been Phil Spencer at the time? Wouldn't that have been Don Matrick?
John Matrick, whoever.
Yeah, because I know Don Matrick was there when they started the Xbox
I think you're right. Yeah, I'm probably wrong
but
about that.
I know Phil Spencer's was a lower position at the time, so maybe
lower
he
position, but still a high up executive at Microsoft.
Yeah. So I don't really know, but yeah, okay.
And then the thing I want to talk about before we move on from this is the Spartan Ops. Oh, Spartan Ops. Such wasted potential. I mean, how cool would it have been, especially, you know, before like modern subscription services and games as a service models that are popular now, in Halo 4's time, circa 2012, right? Where the game launches and you play it from start to finish. Even if you knew who the Didact was and the Librarian and Lasky and whatever, all these characters, let's say you really liked Halo 4 and you wanted more story and more missions, right? Spartan Ops would give it to you periodically, or rather episodically, like when we were kids and we'd tune in each day to watch like the newest episode of Dragon Ball Z or something. Like, that is a cool concept to put in a video game. However, of the 3 story arcs that were planned, or seasons if you want to call them, for Spartan Ops, only one was ever fully put in the game, because by the time the first Spartan Ops game, or Spartan Ops season was put in, the game's numbers as far as daily population had dwindled so low that they relegated the rest of the 2 seasons to comics called Halo Escalation. I mean, here's some proof, right? I mean, just within weeks, the game dwindled lower than even Halo Reach had. I mean, and the rest of the story, which was very important, was relegated to these Halo Escalation comics, these Spartan Ops seasons. For those who don't realize, in Spartan Ops, there's this piece of Forerunner technology and comes in halves. And when you put the 2 halves together, it shows a real-time location of any and all Forerunner technology ever created. So any Halo ring, the Arc, any of the Shield worlds, and I don't know, the Guardians for Halo 5 maybe, all these things, when you put the 2 halves of this thing called the Janus key together. And in Season 1, the only season we got in the video game of Spartan Ops, Halsey has one half at the end of the season, and this Spartan Thorn guy or whatever has it at the other end. And we never get to see any sort of finality to that arc, unless you read the comics. Because by the point they were going to put the rest of the seasons in, there weren't enough people logging in every day to justify its existence. That's how unpopular Halo 4 was. And yet, who got a pat on the back for carrying the franchise and feeling like they earned the mantle? 343. But let's go on. Because surely they would have learned about this whole transmedia thing the next game, right? Well, all right. I know that there's not much to be said that hasn't already been said about Halo 5 Guardians. Let me just tell you my perspective, right? There are 9 points of entry, I guess we can call them, into Halo 5 Guardians, right? I read this and Bad Blood, the book that kind of goes in tandem with New Blood. I watched this animated series, which is just an animated adaptation of the novel by the same name, which is a terrible adaptation, but whatever. I obviously have and have played this game, which there's like an extra cutscene or two.
I was gonna say, how was that?
Halo
they added
2,
in a cutscene
anniversary collection.
Okay.
Retroactively inserted Spartan Lock into a cutscene. Yeah.
Nice.
This is a marketing campaign advertisement that we were all misled by and saw. I mean, Spartan Lock has more character development in this and in this than he does in the actual game. But I digress. I saw this, read this, great book, but really I didn't see it have any bearing on Halo 5. Hunt the Truth, I listened to religiously. I mean, Keegan-Michael Key's voice acting, superb, awesome, fantastic. Didn't have any relevance on Halo 5 Guardians as far as I can tell, even years later. Nightfall, again, it was a live-action series kind of showing Spartan Lock's background and whatever. It's some pretty interesting topics that the directors get into with Nightfall. Still, overall, not the best live-action series. And again, really doesn't make me feel any different about how terrible Halo 5 was. Same thing with Hunters in the Dark. Fantastic novel. It's basically Halo 3, but in book form. You're on the Ark. You're working cooperatively with the elites. I mean, it's awesome. But it doesn't really have anything to do with Halo 5. The only one I missed out on and never read was the Escalation novels, and I still was confused as to what was going on with Halo 5 Guardians. But the worst part is that, let's say Buck, who I saw last in the video game in Halo 3 ODST years before this game came out. Nathan Fillion is an awesome voice actor. They got his face really well for the technology they had back then. It was great to see him, right? Even though I have never watched Firefly, admittedly, but whatever. Nathan Fillion's great. When I saw him in Halo 5 Guardians on like the first or second mission, I was wondering, what is he doing as an Spartan 4 instead of a gunnery sergeant? And why isn't he leading Fire Team Osiris? What is going on? And then I had to read these 2 books to find it out. And even then, they're more like recap novels about what happened in the video game ODST, because any random person who picks up New Blood is going to wonder, what's an ODST? What's Halo? So they have to kind of, out of obligation, you know, go back and fill you in on what happened in the video game so you understand the book. And then towards the end, there's a little dovetail showing some new stuff about Spartan Lock and whatever. But it's still just, the worst part is that when Buck is in Halo 5, he doesn't get a whole lot of character development. I mean, there's an entire part where Master Chief and Spartan Lock fight. It's a terrible fight, but the worst part is all of his fire team, like Buck and Tanaka and Vale, are just watching from the sidelines, not even on camera. And then afterwards, none of them talk about it.
Yeah.
They never met. It's like Fight Club. You don't talk about it. They got no character development. There was so much potential there, and they just never go anywhere with Halo 5. But then again, can you blame them? Out of all these novels, the characters in them are so numerous that to give all of them adequate screen time and attention in one video game would have been darn near impossible.
It would be like an Avengers level task, if not more.
But without the 3 videos per Avenger.
Just looking at this, this seems like a little much to, you know. I think your game should be able to carry on into each other, and I hate when companies do this in terms of just like I've said before, I'm not a big like story guy, but
even this,
but like that's just like daunting, and it's just like if I ever did want to play the campaign, it's like, oh well, maybe not, you know.
Exactly.
Would you say, I know you're familiar with both series, would you say Halo is more convoluted than Kingdom Hearts? Or is it about...
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, that's my opinion. Someone else might say otherwise. And I know more about Halo than I do Kingdom Hearts, but like Kingdom Hearts, you know what? No,
and we don't
I'm
need
not
to,
even going to go there.
We don't need to sidetrack that much. I'm just a quick...
quick.
I just wanted like but it still seems a bit too much. And obviously it's the sell stuff. Like, I mean,
the transmedia stuff. I mean, the commercial was technically like free to watch. The serial podcast was posted on YouTube for free, but all the novels, they got to pay the authors and the editors and the publishers somehow. So the books, the games that go along with it, they cost money. The comic books cost. It's extra transmedia money. It is business, as Frank O'Connor will tell you himself later on. So let's not dawdle on this too much.
And I guess just my one little point I was going to say is when it comes to when it comes to the stuff where you said it's not like it basically almost had no impact on Halo 5.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to say, "Oh yes, this is definitely important." for Halo 5.
Well,
it's definitely tied to it.
They just have to make it seem like it.
Because they want you to be interested in it. It's like, oh well, I'd like to know more about Halo 5.
Well, the worst part, Darren, is that this game came out 5 years ago, right? In all the research I did with, looking at interviews and post-mortem game conferences and all this other stuff, I never found 343 explaining what the hell happened. I mean, if they can tell us something that like, oh, well, there was a miscommunication between the advertisement and marketing team and Microsoft and our own campaign directors, like, okay, I could at least like give you that point where credit's due. But so far as we know, they just dropped the ball on storytelling. So again, this is just part of what's already been said ad nauseum on the internet about Halo 5. I still take a lot of issue with Halo 4's story, but again, Halo 5 is the most obvious example. I want you to hear from this guy who I think says some points that are pretty well capitulated, if this loads.
Am I right in thinking that Spartan Locke is basically the Poochie of Halo?
Yes, he is absolutely the Poochie of Halo. For people who don't know what that reference is, in one episode of The Simpsons, obviously the Poochie episode, basically
a cartoon creator within the context of the Simpsons universe tries to spice up a show by introducing a new wacky character who's cooler than everybody else, and it just fails miserably.
When are they gonna get to the fireworks factory?
And it's like a perfect example of just what happens when creative people get desperate for new material and they run out of ideas and stories for the existing characters in a series or franchise and think, oh fuck it, put in this new character who's the coolest and the strongest. It's like Spartan Locke is way cooler. He was always there. He's always in the background doing dirt when you weren't seeing him. He's definitely as cool as Master Chief, and obviously because they don't have the established context and the history that these existing characters do, they have to try super hard. So no, they're cool. These characters are cool.
Hey kids, always be psycho. To the extreme! Busted!
By far one of the most frustrating aspects of Spartan's inclusion in the Halo universe, though, was the fact that in Halo 5 he's shown to be able to hold his own against Master Chief in a fist fight. Virtually every game in the Halo series you play as Master Chief, so you the player know what this character is capable of. And I don't know about a lot of people playing, but my version of Master Chief destroyed every enemy he ever came across with a combination of gun butts, grenades and teabags. Like, my version of Master Chief is just like this immortal Batman tier God King. So when I play Halo 5 and I'm playing as Spartan fucking Locke, it's like, this character beat up that character you played as for 3 games. Like, no, he fucking didn't. This, for anyone unfamiliar with it, is an amazingly frustrating trope known as the Worf effect, a lazy storytelling device used to establish a character as being badass at the expense of an already established character.
Happens a lot in TV and film, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, and the Worf effect obviously is named after Lieutenant Worf from Star Trek The Next Generation, where to establish that a new character they introduced is being badass, they always used to have them beat up Worf.
All right, last point that this guy's going to make that I think is important in this video.
If you kill certain enemies in that game, the smaller, weaker enemies will drop their guns and run away because they're that scared of Master Chief. They call him the Demon. That's how terrifying you are. You are a legend amongst your enemies' ranks. And throughout those games, you effortlessly slaughter entire armies. And then in Halo 5, this guy, this mythological figure in this universe, this figure who is held up, like, people think he's some sort of deity, he's some sort of godlike being who just descends onto battlefields and just destroys all in his wake, loses in a fist fight to a guy who's introduced 10 minutes earlier. So basically, you just shit all over the legacy of this character for 15 years building up. So this new character that you made seems cooler. And it's just...
It's terrible story writing.
I think the perfect parallel to that is Jurassic Park 3, where
Alan.
Well, yeah, but you're led to believe that the T-Rex is the fiercest thing out there and takes out everyone. And then in Jurassic Park 3, they introduce the Spinosaurus. Yeah. And the Spinosaurus snaps the T-Rex's neck. And
I mean, they've been doing that ever since Jurassic Park 3. With the Jurassic World movies, same principle.
Yeah, so
they literally had to invent a new dinosaur.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it seems like that sort of.
No, that's a great point. I didn't expect that, but that makes a lot of sense. Well, I started this presentation with a quote from Shakespeare. So Hamlet again. More matter with less art. One of the characters in Hamlet is named Polonius, and he's an idiot. He says a whole lot, but very little of it is important. Hopefully, that's not me as well. I know I tend to talk a lot, and I know I could probably trim a lot of the fat of what I say, but I really do speak from the heart a lot of the time, and so maybe that's part of the side effect. But still, this applies to Halo in the sense that, as you can see up top, there's a whole lot of matter, a whole lot of books and other transmedia storytelling experiences, as 343 would call it. But how much of it is truly artful? Now, granted, a large portion of these are New York Times bestsellers. Frank O'Connor, I might not like him for a bunch of different reasons. But one reason I do like him is because he wrote this book called Saint's Testimony, which is part of this whole transmedia thing. And it's a darn good piece of sci-fi literature. Good on you, Frankie boy, for writing that. That was well written. I just wish you would handle the franchise better, not lie to us so much. We'll get more on that later. Joe Staten himself, who I think you mentioned, you heard is coming back to help Halo Infinite get pushed to completion. He also wrote a couple of these novels as well, and some of the Halo Encyclopedia books. Bungie was initially reluctant to have Microsoft put out any books, but obviously, you know, they're the publisher and they kind of get to do what they want in a sense. So they did. And obviously, I really enjoyed the books too, and so I'm glad that they did. However, it's kind of a necessary evil because, well, these are what we care about the most. All right. We care about the games. When you play from game to game, you're typically going to be introduced to maybe 1 or 2 books ever during the entire time you're playing these games. I only started reading the Halo books around the time when these 2 games came out, around 2010. Before this, when I was a young kid growing up in the early 2000s and late 90s and whatever, I didn't even realize that there were Halo books and comics and all these other things. I thought all I got was the games. So when I learned there were books, I was ecstatic. I was overjoyed. Oh, cool, I get to read stuff. And it counts for, like, you know, that program where, like, if you read a book, Pizza Hut would give you a free, like, personal pan pizza and whatever. Like, I was really excited. I can get pizza from reading about my favorite video game. That was really cool. So a lot of nostalgia there. But the point is that even though I've gotten into the books quite a bit, I think the grand total that I've read is like 7 out of the like 29. How many people do you think have actually read a single Halo novel front to back who have played these games? Probably not many. Out of the millions of players, maybe 1 or 2 million max, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but a couple. Yeah. So either way, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I don't recognize the 2013 one and the 2015.
That, my good friend, is because they are mobile titles. Yes.
Yeah, well, they say Xbox on them, but I got you.
Oh, well, I think they might have been available for the Xbox One as well, but like they're mostly known as the terrible spin-off mobile titles. I haven't even bothered to play them. They're not all that good, but they still have more character development than anyone in this game, Halo 5 Guardians, that's for sure.
I gotcha.
And it's funny, looking at these games, the most popular one that 343 Industries has put out, by and large, has been Halo the Master Chief Collection, which is really just a compilation of all these games, without Halo Wars 2, I mean, and Halo 4, which honestly isn't even on PC yet, and no one will play when it comes out anyway, because we just wanted these ones, and maybe ODST and Reach too. And it didn't even work for a year or two since when it came out. You could not play a single title on that game, Halo the Master Chief Collection, when it released. And yet it's still more popular than Halo 4 and Halo 5 as far as people who play them combined. I mean, Halo 4, when it came out, the competitive scene was already dwindling because of Reach and ODST. I mean, ODST only had Firefight. You didn't even have traditional, like, 4v4 Slayer modes. Firefight was fun. I remember it fondly, but Halo 3 ODST and a lot of people was an overpriced DLC, didn't focus on the Master Chief. People, by and large, didn't like it when it came out. Same with Reach. Again, no real focus on the Master Chief. It was a prequel, again, to Halo Combat Evolved. And the multiplayer was controversial because of its inclusion of armor abilities and sprinting. And, well, these games kind of broke or fractured the competitive scene because of those things. So really, people were playing tournaments of Halo Combat Evolved 2 and 3 more than they were ODST and Reach. And that was around 2010. When Halo 4 came around, people were like, finally, a mainline Halo game we can play. There was only one, count them, one officially sponsored tournament for Halo 4, and that was the week it came out. After that, no more official competitive contests were held. And if they were just small grassroots things, and that's just how unpopular Halo 4's multiplayer was. So even though the Master Chief Collection did not work for months or years, depending on what you wanted to play from it, it's still more popular than Halo 4 and Halo 5. Go figure. And then these two games might as well not even exist. Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2 were fine. If you'll notice, Halo Wars was the only game on this list that Bungie ever put out that was rated T for teen. Halo Wars 2...
it's hard to see for me, but yeah.
Halo Wars 2, rated T. Halo 5, rated T. This one, I think, is 10 and up, and then Halo Mobile Assault or whatever is rated T. I know these pictures are very blurry, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're trying to cater to the teenage crowd. But whatever. Let's move on.
I imagine that one was T, not E10. Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah, normally I can't think of any game that has guns in it. That's E10.
Sorry, I probably meant to say E10 and just said E instead.
No, you said E10, but what I mean, or that isn't teen, at least teen.
Oh,
but
okay, yeah.
But no big deal.
Well, if we look at the timeline, we could probably see a pattern emerge. So obviously, this is still during the Bungie era. There's a healthy amount, I'd say, of stories that come out around 1, 2, 3 games. I mean, seems pretty fair. But then in 2009, we have sort of this Cambrian explosion of different, comic book stories and encyclopedias.
This is my month now. Yeah.
Right. So this is probably because there was no mainline Halo series game during this time. I mean, Bungie had already announced that they're going to leave from Microsoft, and we had these spin-off games to tide us over until then. So why not tide us over with some more stories, I guess, in the meantime? Not the worst thing in the world, but it's still kind of a lot for 1 year, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have given up by April if it was my...
Well, 2011 and 2014, again, we had Halo 4, but look at all these stories that came along with it, which for a lot of people, hey, it's an upgrade. They started to like the lore. Oh, and this mobile game, Halo Spartan Assault or whatever.
Spartan Assault.
Gotcha. But, I mean, these books, some of them were pretty great, and again, some of these were part of a trilogy just to understand Halo 4. Web series like... Forward Unto Dawn, comic books, whatever. But then it gets a little bit much. In 2015 alone, to hype up Halo 5 Guardians, this is what we have. So at this point, we're all streaming. Okay, go back, cool it a little bit, 343.
Yeah.
At what point, again, more matter, less art. At what point is this just an assembly line? At what point is this just milking a franchise? I think by this point, this isn't even including 2020, but it just feels a little bit shameful at this point. What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, this seems like a little much. I'm curious. I mean, I know books and movies are different, but I'm curious. I know a Halo movie has always been rumored. Going into production,
Showtime series that's been in production for years, but Hollywood kind of moves at its own pace.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I don't know if they were banking on the movie making them a lot of revenue or something. I don't know, but that just leads to my question: would you even want a Halo movie at this point? No. I know this is kind of off topic, but yeah.
I just want Halo to be done. I want it to be done.
Even if it was a retelling of Combat Evolved or something, or a summarized.
I don't care if they redid Halo 4's kind of art style or redid Halo Combat Evolved. Obviously, I'd prefer the older art style, but at this point,
I just mean the story arc.
That's the thing is, if they did a Halo movie, where and when it would take place would entirely make me either be for it or against it.
Yeah. Okay, but I was just curious how you felt about that. But as a casual Halo guy looking in, I would not want to read.
As someone who cares about the games the most, Darren, I don't care if there's a movie or not. But I know there are plenty of people out there besides me who would love and are just drooling and have been for years at the mere concept of a Halo movie. Yeah. But then again, when have video games ever really been all that successful?
Yeah, that's very true.
Look, go ahead.
Yeah, just when it came to the last picture. As someone who, once again, I'm not big into the story anyways, but if this is what you think I need to do to understand your game, you are doing things very wrong.
Yeah. Granted, not every single one of these do you need, but there are enough of them that you need to understand in order to get what's happening in the 343 games. It's kind of bad.
Yeah, no, I'm okay. I would like it if each of the games just flowed naturally into each other, but that's just me.
Well, Bungie's games had their fair share of plot holes
Right.
and anachronisms, but 343 kind of took it to the extreme and didn't seem to learn from their predecessors, which is kind of why I'm upset with them more than just, making mistakes. They made the same mistakes that Bungie made and then some. But
now, I've got a question for you, Devin.
What?
Have you played this Halo Fireteam Raven at all?
No, but I have watched what happens when someone does play that. Someone recorded their playing of it and like all the dialogue and stuff that happens on screen from start to finish of the game.
Okay.
And it's canon. This is entirely my point, is like, this is what happens when you go from, those novels are true, they are canon, they happen in the Halo universe, but the truest canon is what happens in the video games. And as we'll see probably in the next clip, or whenever I have it in this presentation, Frank O'Connor says every story has to matter. And when he says that, he includes even the Dave & Buster's game cabinet of Halo Fireteam Raven. So when fans ask, what's the story in Halo Infinite? How can you blame them to know what the hell any of this is going to have to do with the next game?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And one thing I will say is I actually do know where one of those Halo Fireteam Ravens are.
Is it in a mall or something?
It's actually at Andretti.
Oh, that makes sense.
I believe there is one over there.
The go-kart place. Yeah.
If it's still, I don't know how.
I don't want to play it, dude. I don't want to pay into
I was
this.
curious. I'm like, would you even?
No.
Would you give it a shot?
No.
That could be a video.
No, I will not participate.
Okay.
But anyway, getting back to business here.
Yeah,
Bonnie
but
Ross,
first off,
okay.
just to amplify your point. Yeah, if you're making an arcade game,
canon,
something that's canon, something that's very people have very limited access to. First off, arcades in North America are like absolutely just like barren. Like they're difficult to find. The fact that you're making that part of your required story. Yes, class. Would you? Your required reading, your required storytelling is to go find an arcade that has a Halo Fireteam, and I'll need it by Monday.
Well, in all fairness, Aaron, you don't need to know what happens in Halo Fireteam Raven to know what happens in the games, but it does add some extra.
Yeah.
Like. Again, every story has to matter. This does have to matter, according to 343 Industries.
Right.
That's the difference.
Yeah. No.
Well, to kind of dig the point home here, Bonnie Ross is the corporate vice president or whatever her title is. She's the head honcho. She's the one who founded 343 Industries, and she's the one who says this. And while we love our transmedia, sometimes I do think we do tell a little bit too much story in our games. You know, when you have a gun and then you have aliens shooting at you, it is kind of hard to digest a lot of story. The problem I have with this quote isn't necessarily what the story is told in the games. As I've just spent, this time going over, I have a bigger problem with how much story is told outside of the games.
Oh, Devin.
Are you there?
Okay.
What's the last thing you heard?
So, here's what we're going to do.
All right.
Can you end this meeting so we can get that video clip? Okay. So, quick little interjection here. Is that your mouse on there? Yeah. Quick little interjection here. I had some technical difficulties on my side, just random crashes and stuff like that. So we're going to start from the beginning of this slide, quote from Bonnie Ross. But yeah, just there was some technical difficulties. That's why there was cut. All right. Go ahead, Devin. Sorry about that.
It's all right. All I was saying was that this quote is a bit missing the point. While Bonnie Ross was talking about too much story in their games, what I have a larger concern with is the amount of story outside of the games.
Yeah.
And the thing is, too much story in your games is a bad thing. And I'm glad that Bonnie Ross is at least aware of that, because in Halo 4 and Halo 5 alike, there are plenty of points where for precious seconds and even minutes on end, you are just stuck in a room. You can shoot, you can whatever, but there's nothing to shoot at. You're stuck in a box while the characters exposition dump on you. And in Halo 4, I'm speaking of there's this one space station that has this thing called the Composer, and the Didact, the main antagonist, steals it from you. And while that's happening, Cortana is going crazy and rampant. It can't function. And Master Chief's just stuck there having to watch it all unfold. And while that's happening, you're just in a room, in a box, while this exposition is going on. But at least there's some pretty sights to see while that's going on. It still kind of sucks that you have a bit too much story in your game at that point, as Bonnie Ross addresses here. But you think they learned from it. Well, in Halo 5 Guardians, there's one mission that you play as Fireteam Osiris called like Meridian or something like that, where the entire intro of the game is you getting briefed on what's going on for minutes as you're just descending in the space elevator. Again, a box for you to just stand in, and you can't even look at anything pretty this time. You're just stuck, and there's nothing cool to look at while you're doing. So obviously, Bonnie Ross realizes there's a bit too much story in our game sometimes. And to be fair, Bungie themselves called Captain Keyes in their original Halo Combat Evolved game Captain Exposition because, you know, similar things happen. But again, for such a fan that Bonnie Ross claims to be of the games, you would think that she would not repeat the same mistakes to a worse degree than even her predecessors did. And yet that's exactly what she does, and has the whole outside fiction that conflicts with the storytelling in the games themselves. So again, I'm glad Bonnie Ross is aware of the storytelling in games, but the larger, more daunting problem for old and veteran players alike is how much story is outside the games. So let's try to blow through these as fast as we can.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems like the bigger issue. Like, it definitely entirely just missed the point.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, let's see. This is okay. So again, these are the two charts that really showcase how complicated this whole transmedia obsession is. But let's hear from 343 Industries' own Kiki Wolfkill and Frank O'Connor themselves.
Okay.
So first, I want to address, if this loads correctly, at around 10 minutes, Frank O'Connor himself has this to say. I'm sorry if you're watching this on YouTube and just watching it.
Internal and external. Most of it, most of the work that we do is in storytelling ends up facing the public, and it all has to tie together. We made a decision about 4 years ago that every single story that we were ever going to tell in the Halo universe had to matter, and it had to matter both in terms.
Did you catch that? Every single story had to matter. They made this decision years ago. But wait, it gets better. So at around 13 and a half minutes, he then says this. Oh, hang on.
Elements from those novels will pop up, and sometimes when you're playing the game.
Here we go. Sorry about that.
And again, you don't need to read any of this stuff to understand it when you're playing the game.
Did you catch that?
Again, you don't need to read any of this stuff to understand it when you're playing.
You don't need to read any of this stuff to understand it. Okay. So let's see if other people feel that way. All right. Let's see if other people feel that way. Just bear with me here as this loads. But this is a guy named Hungrybox. This video has like 2 million views.
Is this Hungrybox?
Yeah. Or like, Hugbox or something. I don't know. No, not the melee play. I don't know. Maybe it's the same guy. Player. I don't know. Either way, he makes some very damn good points about Halo.
He is a husk. He's a big green suit of armor that you move around.
Master Chief is human. He's not a machine. He's not
here we go.
A set of armor with a big weapon. He's a human with resilience.
I'm not really going to go into the plot details or the misleading marketing campaign for Halo 5. Not because I don't have criticisms of them, but because I don't even know where to begin. But I will say this. How could anybody think that it is a good idea to log just about all of the context and interesting events of the story behind books? If you want to find out who this guy really is and why he flies around in a giant bowling ball, then you better get cracking on those books, buddy. As somebody who hasn't read the books before playing Halo 4, I had absolutely no clue as to what is going on. This from a guy who has played through the entirety of Halo 1 through Reach at least 10 times. If your story is too complicated to fit into a game, maybe you shouldn't be telling it through a game and it's time to go back to the drawing board. The brilliance of the Bungie games was that there was just enough exposition in the games to keep the story moving and prevent the player from getting lost. But if you wanted to dive deeper into the Halo universe, the books were there for you. Now you've got to do a couple days worth of homework before you even start a Halo game, or you'll be totally lost. This all reeks of game developers trying to imitate film. There's also the issue...
So, you see what I'm saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, before we get on to the rest of this slide, because it's not just this video and a blank screen, here's something else that this Hugbox, Hungrybox guy says that I think makes a lot of sense. And it starts, I think, at here. Somewhere.
And I'll try to include the links to all these videos
in
the description.
I'll send them to you at a later date.
Well, I have the
Gameplay,
PowerPoint downloaded.
The adults are talking. It's all about the money now. Unbelievable, right? I can't help but feel that 343 just forgot that Halo is supposed to be fun. What good is a campaign if it's full of characters most people find to be unlikable?
Again, what good is a campaign if it's full of characters most people find unlikable? And like he said, if you want to know some of this stuff, as someone who's played Halo Combat Evolved through Reach at least 10 times, like he says, even he didn't realize who the Didact was, what he was doing there, etc., etc. So again, it's not just me thinking, oh, you know, you need to read the books. Frank O'Connor is lying. Or maybe he's convinced that you really don't need to read the books when has he ever read them himself and then tried to play the games? Here's where I'm going with this. 343 Industries has this tendency to develop characters, a lot of them, but it's quality versus quantity because many of them are one note. They're flat characters. They're forgettable characters who were probably included out of an obligation to promote diversity, didn't undergo really any significant character development in the games in which they premiere, and otherwise didn't really matter to the plot. They could have not existed at all, and the game would have more or less turned out the same. These are characters like Isabel from Halo Wars 2, or Dr. Tilson, who I know is a side character, and I wanted to like her character, but it just wasn't sitting well. Captain Del Rio, whose really only character trait is he's angry. Roland, who again is, there's this trope with 343 games of AIs that are way too emotional for some reason. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless they're rampant. Even Buck,
Nathan Fillion,
I know his character I wanted to like simply because of Nathan Fillion. But they made his character so unlikable in Halo 5 Guardians that I was genuinely upset. I mean, I already came into Halo 5 liking this character. They had a great talent in the voice actor and motion caption actors for this character. And yet, how can they take all this talent at their disposal and still ruin it? Of course, all of Halo 5 Guardians' blue team was kind of underdeveloped. Do you even know who these other characters are besides John 117 in the middle here, Darren?
No, but I also don't really follow the campaign, unfortunately. So
okay, well,
I'm not exactly here.
No, I get what you're saying, but like I know this is Fred because he's the only other boy. And then one of these is Kelly and one of them is Linda. I think this one's Kelly, this one's Linda. But if I'm wrong about that, it's because they're so unforgettable. And these are like the Spartans that Chief grew up with, apparently.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and then these ones,
pretty important characters.
Yeah. And again, like all of Fireteam Osiris and Blue Team, the two playable teams in Halo 5 Guardians, notice how they represent a diverse group of ethnicities and as far as gender allocations in each team, 2 are boys, 2 are girls. I mean, do you think that's coincidence? I think not.
No, but I think it's cool that they're trying to do that, but if they're not fleshing them out, then...
Exactly. And that's the thing is they focus too much on that. But here, let Bonnie Ross tell you herself. If it ever loads.
Yeah, no worries.
Also, take a shot every time she says diversity.
You know, it is about creating worlds that we all want to escape into. And I think it's about creating diverse characters and interesting storylines and that's something that I'm really passionate about, and a lot of the women on the team are as well.
Tell me about that. How has the fact that you're now running the show there affected the game?
Yeah, I think diversity does attract diversity. So I think we have a more diverse team than in the past, which I think the team actually really appreciates. And I also think that diverse teams do kind of create a diverse output, or how diverse thinking and innovation on where you're going is. So I think that having more women on the team, we have a lot of really strong female characters. We have a lot of really strong male characters too, and a really diverse character set that, I'd like to think that just the awareness of having a diverse team makes both males and females think differently.
So she claims to have a bunch of strong male and female characters. Again, I refer to my last slide where all the characters I showed, both male and female, were rather unimpressive in the games in which they premiered, even if they had books to back up their stories. And I don't know, in my screen, your face is over this headline. Can you see the article on the right?
Bonnie Ross is pushing social justice into Halo, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Ross is ignoring fan sentiments to insert social justice ideas into the game.
I mean, okay, that's like a fluff piece that I take with a huge grain of salt, but still, the fact that there are articles published about this every once in a while shows that, she obviously has her priorities more in promoting diversity and virtue signaling than actually telling great quality stories with characters that last. For example, even as recently as March of 2019, in an interview, she reports that it is a priority goal to create experiences in her Halo games which allow a diverse range of players to feel as though they're represented in the game they're playing. Nothing, it's pretty innocuous, right? The thing is, here's how she deals with it. She takes options such as gender, skin color, body size, and general appearance choices to play a key role in creative processes for Ross and many like her. In other words, those who surround Bonnie Ross obviously are on the same page. And granted, in the Bungie games, I could see a bit of myself in some of those characters that maybe weren't white or male like me, right? I could see a bit of myself in Halsey. I could see a bit of myself in, Sergeant Johnson. I mean, I could see myself in anyone and every one of those characters because they all shared a shred of heroism. Some of them acted cool under pressure. Some of them were just like badass. Some of them were like John Wayne in space in the form of Master Chief, or Clint Eastwood, right? Like that was cool. How many of those characters can you say share similar traits in the 343 games? And many of you could probably say yes, but for me, not many. So the sad part about this is that Stanley himself gave 343 advice on what makes an iconic character. As you're listening, ask yourself some of these questions on the screen.
Got Noble Team, who are kind of our heroes. What do you think goes into kind of creating an iconic character?
Well, the iconic character has to have some unique qualities that are different from other characters. That's what makes him or her iconic. And the iconic character also should have some quality that makes the game player or the viewer or whoever the person is care about that character. So underneath all the superpowers and the costuming and everything, there should be a human being that we can empathize with and that we want to see do well. And of course, as the story goes on, the character does not do well, and that's why we worry and why we're concerned and why we're hoping for a happy ending. You have to create characters that people care about, that they want to see what's going to happen next, and they want that only if they relate to the character, only if they see qualities in that character that are recognizable or that they can feel empathetic about. They could say, gee, I'm a little bit like him, or he's a little bit like me, and I'd love to see what happens, because if I were in his shoes, what would I do? What would happen to me? So I guess to sum it up, it has to be a character that the reader or the audience, whatever it is, relates to and cares about. Now, how you make the character that way, that's the tough part.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to give 343 credit where it's due. Making these characters seem awesome and making people care about them in an already pretty crowded stage that Bungie built up is no small task, and you don't always pull it off with the plum. However, I mean, character for character, they haven't had a whole lot of successes. How many characters from Halo 4 or Halo 5 do you actually care about to this day? How many of them do you see yourself in when most of them are characterized as being abrasive or crying or emotionally compromised? How heroic is any of that? But the diversity part of it does mean that the more people play the games, the more people can see themselves or identify with some characters. Maybe they're female and they're a Spartan, or maybe they're black like Spartan Locke. I mean, you know, whatever your rhyme or reason. But that stuff was in the Bungie games too. So I don't really understand the reasoning there.
So I know when I add my points in, they're kind of just like almost tangential, but I just want to add this in. So, of course, Stanley is a master storyteller and all that. So this is, I think, you know, as someone who kind of more focuses on older games and things like that, I think a lot of the factor has to come to like a character design standpoint, like when it comes to the older video game characters and things like that. Like let's say Mega Man, for example, the classic Mega Man, not any ones that really have much of a story.
Yeah.
At that point, it comes to like the world that's built around Mega Man, as well as the design of the character, and just how that's kind of how you fall in love with that character, you know? So when it comes to 343, you're dealing with this already established franchise. Because when you think of Master Chief, you think of the world of Halo and how he's affected by the world and everything like that.
Right.
So I think when you try to bring in these new characters, it's going to be much harder for them because they're already competing with these very strong characters from the original trilogy, like you said. So while Stan Lee brings up his points from a storytelling perspective, I think with gaming, you can create your own characters without it needing to be this big story thing. Just if you look at, you know, your retro characters, but it's more of like the design and the worlds they bring in and things like that. So these later characters are going to be more difficult, like you said.
And I can do a whole nother and I can do a whole nother spiel about soft world building versus hard world building. It's actually a really interesting topic. But like you said, when Fact Fiend, who we saw a video of earlier, had played the game for how long, and he was like, "Why are you having the Worf effect happen on Master Chief, where this new character just introduced for this game?" And maybe some going forward, maybe meant to even be his Master Chief's replacement. Because the whole title of that video was, you know, 343 didn't realize Master Chief was the main character of Halo 5, which I didn't play that part of the video for time's sake, but go and watch it.
Of course.
Anyway.
It'll be in them.
Yeah. But
in the description.
The Worf effect happens where, hey, they put Spartan Locke in, standing toe-to-toe to this Master Chief character that's been built up over a decade or 15 years at that point, I guess you could say. And they have suddenly, you know, the Poochie effect happen as well. It's shameful. And it's again, the whole topic of this presentation is it's a sign that the, you know, tank has run out of gas for Halo a long time ago, to where they're really having to stretch it and rely on these lazy storytelling techniques just to try to keep Halo fresh and relevant seeming. So that's really my take on that.
Which I know we touched on in the last video. Might not all be 343's fault. You know, Microsoft doesn't want their biggest franchise to go away. Yeah,
and that's something I think is wrong of Microsoft. I'm not saying that 343 is only to blame, and it's not like every member of 343 from the janitor on up is to blame. You know, there are plenty of people who obviously share the same kind of sentiments that we have towards Halo, but just they aren't in a position where they can really do anything about it. Or really, maybe they believe that what they're doing is right because of, again, that whole positive feedback echo chambers thing I mentioned earlier. Who knows?
Now, when it comes to Microsoft, of course, they're their end game is money, of course. Like, they're a business. That's what they
Bungie's
want.
end game was money too, but
right.
more than anything else, while they were making money, they knew that quality attracted people more than quantity. That's just
right.
Yeah, but go ahead.
But with Bungie were the creators of it. Microsoft pretty much just owns the rights at this point, and they see Microsoft as their Mario, and they're just like, well, or Microsoft, they see Halo as Master Chief as their Mario, Halo as their Mario.
Yep.
So yeah, they're gonna keep
milk it
trying to make
worth.
money out of it. Yeah. And
we'll get into that later.
Now,
about just
is
how
that a
much
good
money it's
thing?
made.
Is that right? Yeah. So yeah, we'll get into that.
Yeah, but you raise a good question. Is that okay? And there's a slide I have, if we can get through this, because I know I'm taking up precious time.
That's good.
That addresses that very same question. So we'll bring that up again when we get
We'll get
there.
into that.
Yep.
Okay.
But great question. I'm glad you said that.
Okay.
So talking again a bit more objectively, here's another poll. And again, remember, keep in mind those biases, like the voluntary bias and the recency and the sample size. But again, you can find polls that say this is a consensus. By and large, is Master Chief the most broken AAA game ever made? I mean, what kind of question is that? Either worst or not the worst launch ever. It's still pretty biased. But the point is, I mean, when an overwhelming 3/4 of the people think that, or participants, like I should say, believe that it was the worst launch ever. Is that something you ever thought you would associate with Halo of all things? And on top of which, is this a sign that maybe Halo's losing its way? Because if this isn't, I don't know what else could be.
Right. My point on that is, look, there's a lot of games out there. Obviously,
there
when it comes
the
to
Bungie days too. I'm just saying.
No. I'm not talking about just Halo in general. But I'm saying, like, people that answered this poll are people that have played the Master Chief Collection, but probably haven't played every game that's ever been released. So of course they're gonna say, yes, it's the worst thing ever. It's the worst thing I've experienced.
Memory. Yes, not everyone's like a gaming historian who takes this.
Right. So now, as far as AAA, maybe, but there's some. I don't know. You think of those games that were like very hyped up, and then you never hear from again. That were kind of your AAA, like, oh, like this game's gonna be great. It's super hyped up, and then it.
Regardless, 100% of these people would probably agree, if I had to guess, that this wasn't a great launch for Halo.
No, it was not a good launch for sure. I had Master Chief Collection very close to launch.
Yeah,
it was a mess. I'm not disagreeing that you could say it is the worst launch ever. And then, of course, when it comes to launches, some games, just from a historical perspective, you couldn't change after it launched. One example, it's probably the most well-known example, is E.T., which Atari banked on for a long time, and then it released. It was made in 6 weeks, and then it's considered the game that caused the video game crash. So, but you couldn't fix it after it came out. That was the game,
well, those were times before DLC and patches and updates as well.
Yes. So, I think most broken, I wouldn't say so.
I know you take issue with that, but again, consider the audience that participated. I mean, I'm sure not everyone knows about every single broken game ever released, but by and large, this does not point or bode well with Halo. Again, something is rotten in the state of Denmark. That's I don't want to argue with you over which was the most broken AAA game.
Oh, no. I'm just saying, like, the people that would have responded to this poll are people that played the Master Chief Collection, not necessarily played every AAA game out there.
Yeah.
But that's just my point on there. I don't mean to just to try to tear apart your argument. I just want to see,
see, that's what I encourage. Tear apart my argument if you can. And I will agree with you. It probably wasn't the worst broken AAA game ever made. This is a bit hyperbolic, but still, my point isn't the accuracy of this. The point is this isn't good news.
No.
And yeah, just moving on here. The Master Chief Collection.
Wait, can you go back for a second?
Sure. What are you trying to look at?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, I saw the date up there, but which was 2011, which I was like, wait, but no, that's a different article. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's
yeah. If we lose our way, we lose our way with Xbox. Yeah, so Spencer, Microsoft
right.
game.
You good?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So on the Master Chief Collection, just a quick aside here. Obviously, for those who don't know, this Master Chief Collection was not received well at launch. The reason why is because you could not play any of the campaign levels or any of the multiplayer levels, which was really all there was to Halo when this Master Chief Collection released on any of the games. Now, they did try to patch the game, but rarely did it get to a playable state with patches, and some of them broke the game more than fix. And part of that is because you have a technical marvel of all these games, different game engines from previous console generations, which during the time they were made, even Bungie admits sometimes they were held together with bubblegum and duct tape. But, you know, trying to make them run on the Xbox One family of consoles at a smooth, buttery, crisp, 60 frames per second or whatever they were aiming for, in the time that they had while developing Halo 5 Guardians, I try to give 343 the benefit of the doubt on this, but even though it was probably Microsoft pushing them to release this game when they knew darn well it wasn't going to be ready on time, it's still morally gray. It's unethical, I would consider it. But hey, again, this is one of those cases where they've never been truly honest with us about what happened. There's never been an official post-mortem on the Master Chief Collection's bugs. And so there are these YouTubers called Extra Credits who are themselves involved in game development. I don't agree with everything they say. And maybe part of that's just because I don't know what it's like to be a game developer. But in their video, they summarize the 3 main reasons why buggy games get shipped. And like it says on the side here, ask yourself, is there a certain combination of these, one in particular, or maybe all of these plus a 4th reason that caused Master Chief Collection to be shipped in the way it did and remain that way for so long? I'm not expecting an answer to this. It's just an open-ended question. So, and it was just a quick aside, so let's just move on. Just for those who didn't really understand the Master Chief Collection controversy. But
one thing you said, I never even realized the campaign mode was broken on Master Chief as well. I never tried to play it when it came out.
Oh yeah, like I'm talking like bugs that were not in the original games were there, and they would cause things to crash. You could not take parties with you from mission to mission, game to game. I mean, a lot of different things, more than just the multiplayer. The campaign was one of the first things to get fixed, which was nice, I guess. But as far as I remember,
I didn't get Halo Master Chief Collection right at launch. I got it probably a few months after, probably like 4 months after, I want to say, maybe 3 months. Because it came out, when did that come out? November of like 2014, I want to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think I got it in February or January.
Traditionally, Halo games release in the fall.
Anyway, of course.
This is a quote from one of the misleading marketing advertisements about Halo 5 Guardians. Master Chief is slated to be hunted down by Spartan Locke, and in one of the commercials, I think it's Spartan Locke's voice actor, I think his name is Luke Cage, who says, the seeds of our future are sown in his past. Or maybe it's it's the Arbiter. Whoever the voice actor for the Arbiter is says this. And talking about his being the Master Chief. I think this is just kind of like how we say those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That's the reason why I included this quote. It resembles that in the Halo context. But this next slide is going to show, or hopefully exemplify, how the core guiding game design philosophy of 343 Industries has hindered rather than helped Halo. So here we go.
Okay.
So on the left, we're going to have Ryan Darcy from 343 Industries talk a little bit about Halo and the culture and the mindset at 343 Industries when it comes to shipping games. And on the right, we're going to have, even as far back as Halo 2, the culture and guiding philosophies of Bungie's. And ask yourself while you're watching this, which is the most beneficial to Halo's progress? So let's hope this loads and plays correctly at the right time. Should be at 3423, which it didn't load in at, so I'm going to put it to
the setup for choosing where to innovate.
Yeah, that one was the one that acted
or more specifically, choosing where to innovate for the Spartan. And although this
So patience, please.
No worries.
Oh, not really
And
to you,
I
just
might...
anyone watching this video.
Oh, yeah, of course. I might edit in like the actual video clips when they're running more smoothly. We'll see.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I think this is the right timestamp, so here we go.
Okay.
Ended up having time to discuss 2 of them, not to mention, these slides only represent the schemes that we actually implemented. There were even more options pitched, but they failed the minimum requirements so clearly that we didn't even bother trying them out in game. The bottom line here is sometimes good enough is the best you're going to get.
Sometimes good enough is the best you're going to get. All right, well, compare that to this.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Just click on YouTube. Maybe go back on the...
Oops. Let's try this again. Sorry, y'all.
You're good. Yeah, click on the actual little YouTube link at the bottom of the video where it says YouTube.
Hang on. You're talking about down here somewhere?
Yeah, click. Okay. Click play and then just try to click that real quick.
Oh, I couldn't. Well, essentially, I know the quote. Adrian Perez, who worked on Halo 2, is quoted there saying that, there's a culture that's bred in each of us here at Bungie that good enough just sucks. So Ryan Darcy's saying sometimes good enough is what you're going to get versus Bungie saying good enough sucks. I mean, which do you think is more beneficial for Halo?
Yeah.
So that's really the important part from there. Let's see if any of these load.
I was going to say, you could also click maybe the top of the link.
Care.
If that,
at this point, it doesn't matter too much at this point. This is already kind of a clusterfuck of a video.
I know, it's all good, buddy.
But one other thing, you'll see here, this is a picture of, this was a leak of some of the UI that people thought was going to be in Halo Infinite. And turns out this was an early build for Halo Infinite, and it includes, down here in the bottom left, an indicator for a grappling hook, which is what caused the whole Grapplegate scenario I talked about the first time we mentioned this. Well, the weird thing about the grappling hook, since we last talked, is I found out 343 Industries has confirmed that if you have a suicide grunt, and now they get flung in the air at you with their 2 plasma grenades lit, it's pretty interesting. It's cool, I'll admit. But when the grunts get thrown up in the air, you can interact with them via the grappling hook. Now, here's the thing that's weird about that. If you have the skill to grapple on and link up with and attach the grapple to that grunt, you're the Master Chief, right? You obviously weigh more than a grunt. You would think that you would be able to be rewarded for your skill in using the equipment around you, like the grappling hook and whatnot, to, I don't know, lasso the grunt back at the enemy, pull him towards the ground, either way, make his kamikaze attack null and void. Well, 343 has confirmed that if you grapple onto a grunt, you're rewarded with death. You, the bigger object, get pulled towards the grunt and explode, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense even in a science fantasy universe. But here's why that's important. In 343 Industries' mind, that doesn't really matter. One of the quotes that Ryan Darcy says is, hey, if you break the laws of physics, fine, so long as the player doesn't feel like they have a jarring experience. Well, that's exactly what they're doing, is they're giving us a jarring experience, which does break immersion. Here's the importance of that Bungie understands.
Games are nothing without suspension of disbelief, of you losing yourself in that environment.
They're creating fantasy world, but even fantasy world has some resemblance to real world.
If water looks like water, and rocks look like rocks, and explosions look like explosions, then you are engaged in the plot at a much more visceral level.
The way that the engineers and the artists work together is one of my favorite things about Bungie. You've got these insanely brilliant mathematical types that are really passionate about this new technology.
Pass from one object to another is the thing that makes these cascading relationships happen.
Last little bit here.
No worries.
The relationship at Bungie.
I think the interaction between design and engineering is that design
asks for the sky and engineering delivers the earth.
Because we're engineers. We are like really into doing things physically correct.
We are into doing things physically correct because we are engineers. Rocks still got to look and function like rocks. Trees still got to look and function like trees. Water like water. Gravity like gravity. I mean, I know you can have like anti-grav beams like they did in the Bungie days with the Truth and Reconciliation going up in the grav lifts and all that. But like some things still must apply even in making fantasy war. Bungie understood that. Obviously, 343 didn't learn their lesson from Bungie and still failed to apply it. That's what angers me. And I'm not going to get into this other video just for sake of time.
Okay.
But anyway, ask yourself this. When you think of Halo, is this what you think of?
See.
I think you're going to like the music here just because of, well, I know you.
Rangers in space.
I don't know. We might get copyrighted, but yeah.
Honestly, pretty good music.
Not bad for a Power Rangers theme.
I know, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right.
So I guess my point is, yes, you were this, as the Fact Fiend mentioned, this sort of God among men, Batman, hero, king character, but you still had formidable foes that knocked you on your ass from time to time. When you're effortlessly jumping out of pelicans, gliding down the sides of these, mountains and whatever, effortlessly kung fuing enemies and whatever, it just destroys the whole. Well, Marty O'Donnell says it best himself. I have it in another video, but I have a feeling for time's sake, I'm going to have to skip on it.
That's okay.
It's all right.
Yeah.
He says there's no sense of heroism when there's nothing actually at stake. There's no danger. There's no peril. Hence, these don't feel like heroes. They feel like Saturday morning cartoon protagonists, which aren't like heroes. They're Power Rangers. Even the Power Rangers, though, get their butts handed to them a couple times. It's not Halo.
Right.
So that's part of the reason why, again, this picture's here. Hey, look, Power Rangers use grappling hooks. And I don't know, I didn't show this part of Ryan Darcy, his conversation, but he mentions how whenever Halo was brought up around the office, they obviously talk about Batman. Paul Crocker, who's been working with the Batman Arkham series before coming on to work on Halo Infinite with 343 Industries, obviously has some of his preferences for Batman taken into account when making Halo Infinite. And of course, Jerry Hook, who is the engineer, I guess, behind the grappling hook in Halo Infinite, all kind of point to, well, no shit, there's going to be a grappling hook in Halo Infinite. Like, it kind of just seemed like something that would be set in place. On top of, like we talked about last time, Darren, all the oversaturation of grappling hooks in video games. Now, granted, this is a fun mechanic, but if used in accordance with the laws of physics, as these bottom two pictures say here, and even in science fantasy where you can bend physics a little bit, it's still going to feel odd every time. If I were to ever play Halo Infinite, which I don't think I will, but if I were to ever play it, in certain situations like the grunt that I talked about earlier, me flying to that would feel odd and it would break that immersion. And obviously I'm not the only one to think so. On top of which, like this Anthony Pacifico guy says here, a grappling hook was never going to sell me on this game. It's, it might be a new thing for Halo, but because it's been overdone by other games and other franchises, it just makes Master Chief more like these guys instead of like Master Chief. And for some people, they like seeing Power Rangers and Batman in their Halo. For me, I liked Halo when it was just about the Chief and what he can do. But anyway, what are your thoughts on this before I move on?
I need to look into footage of like Doom Eternal and everything like that, because that
it has
had
this
a
thing called
grappling
a
hook
meat
feature.
hook, and oftentimes people equate the Halo Infinite thing to a Doom Eternal ripoff, which I don't know if that's entirely accurate. There's a lot of difference, but there are also a lot of parallels between Doom and Halo. Big green guy fighting an enemy force.
Right. And they were probably in development at the same time.
Definitely.
So I'm just curious because I'm pretty sure I've seen Doomslayer like flying around, but normally I can only think of him grappling to like larger things or like rocks, not necessarily like grunts.
Well,
I'd have to see it, but
they never showed Master Chief grappling to to a grunt. But they did confirm that if that situation were to come about, that's what would happen according to the way they designed this hook. But speaking of copying trends, so right about here. Boop, 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 boop. Sorry, y'all.
Good. I know you're apologizing to everyone else, but it'll be okay.
Yeah,
they made it this far.
Yeah, we made it this far, exactly. Oh, technology. All right. Here we go.
Okay.
Come on, Ryan.
Just that small arena space. Actionable learnings home with you. Number 1, stay on top of trends. Make sure you've got your finger on the pulse of your audience and pay attention to what's trending in your genre to make informed decisions about where to conform or stray from those trends. For example, increased mobility in first-person shooters. Next, find a theme. In addition to following trends, make sure you define a theme to.
So you see what I'm saying? And there's also a part in his speech where he admits that he copied off of Destiny's execution or Spartan Charge-esque ability to make Halo 5's Spartan Charge ability. I mean, they are obviously copying trends. And Martin O'Donnell, as hopefully we'll get to, says about staying creative. You're in culture. You're going to be influenced by other games and other movies. Hell, the Alien franchise of movies definitely influenced these people who made the original Halo games. I mean, the elites have been often compared to like the xenomorphs, and Sergeant Johnson is like Sergeant Apone from the Aliens or Alien 2 whatever movie. Like, it's the similarities are uncanny. You're in culture, and it's not a bad thing to copy and be inspired by culture, but it's not innovative or fresh when you're just parroting other things that are already popular and calling it your own unique, innovative work.
Right. I think there's a lot to be said for when you're more of a trendsetter as opposed to following trends.
And that's the common criticism people leverage against Halo under 343.
Like, for example, with Halo 3, Forge was something you didn't really see much of, at least not to my knowledge at the time. I mean, they were like create your own levels and things like that, but
and a first-person shooter like Halo had no business in that, and yet it was cool that we got it, right?
Right. So it's that's very unfortunate. And I even remember back when Halo 4, when they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna have loadouts," I was like, "No, that's not what I want." I was like,
that's probably a factor as to why the game dipped in popularity so severely so quickly. It hemorrhaged players, and yet it brought in a lot of money. So we'll get into why that matters here in a moment, but I think you're right on the money, Darren.
I mean, I remember there were complaints that Call of Duty was becoming like Halo, and Halo was like becoming like Call of Duty, and then they were just going to merge it into one. Because Call of Duty was trying to go like futuristic technology and everything like that, and
the backlash to them trying that yields what we have now, where the Call of Duty that harkened back to the old World War I, World War II kind of setting. So
or at least modern warfare, not like future. I haven't kept up with Call of Duty, really. So
But anyway, just more about the grappling hook here. I've talked about this last time about how Frank O'Connor denied it, and I know that your point was sometimes that's what you have to do when you're a developer and leaks come out. And I can agree with that to a degree. But again, the way it was handled still felt terribly executed. And then, of course, grappling hook was not something that was taken on a Halo Waypoint poll like Sprint was. No one asked for this. But because it's a staple in the industry, they felt they had to follow. And even if you look at it, it doesn't look like it matches with Chief's armor. Maybe it's just the color palette and I'm nitpicking. But again, obviously these comments point to how I'm not the only one who feels that. A grappling hook just...
Hey, hold on.
I saw that.
Okay.
Don't
so
freak out,
let's
Darren.
back.
Don't freak out.
Okay, so let's back up just a moment. So there was a brief technical glitch. So the last thing you said was that the artwork of the teaser poster.
The way that the grappling hook looks on Master Chief's forearm, it looks kind of out of place, I think, you know? And obviously when this was teased the day before the July 23rd demo, this key art or box art or whatever you want to call it, especially after being essentially lied to about it, whether for better or for worse, people said, no, I kind of hope it's not true, because does a Halo Infinite need a grappling hook? No, it doesn't seem like Master Chief's style, just leave. Hey, maybe that's what it looks like at first, and maybe it's going to be really fun and I'm going to eat crow about it later. But for the most part, I don't think this is something that should have been in Halo Infinite, but it's what we're getting.
And then also, I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that do genuinely think grappling hook's cool. Now,
well, because they think, Ghost of Tsushima or Doom Eternal is fun in Halo. But again, while it's fun, Halo 5 Guardians was a very fun first-person shooter. The question isn't, is it fun? The question is, does it belong in Halo? And that's the thing that I think 343 doesn't seem to really care about, because as long as it sells, they will deface and desecrate anything that Halo ever stood for, is what their behavior shows us, even if their words tell us otherwise. But here's the thing. A prime example of this, they will add a grappling hook into Halo Infinite, and Jerry Hook himself will say, no, you can't hang from walls like you obviously can. You're not going to be able to swing around like Spider-Man. This isn't what the grappling hook lets you do. And yet, in their own footage, their behavior betrays their words. Regardless of what Mr. Hook's intention was, if you put a grappling hook in a Halo game that allows Master Chief to hang from walls or slingshot enemies like this, like Spider-Man can do, you're going to get fan reception of, hey, it's Spider Chief now. And I only made one of these memes. Guess which one? It's the worst looking one, this one. But still, these ones were already on the internet, and it's not like I really went out searching for them. I looked up grappling hook, and these two came up immediately. Like, it's people already have the impression this is Spider Chief, regardless of your intention. That's what happens when you're pushed to do something because it's a standard in the industry now. And I don't think that's very good. But let's move on from the mechanics. And this is a block of text, but basically what this says is, hey, why are the Banished here? And Paul Crocker, who I said was working heavily with the campaign and the script at 343 Industries for Halo Infinite's campaign, said the Banished garnered quite a large following from Halo Wars 2, and it kind of went along with our spiritual reboot of familiar but different. It's the Covenant 2.0. Same enemy factions, just different leaders. Now, the Banished had quite a large following from Halo Wars 2. I don't know. My bullshit meter kind of ticks a little bit. I mean, even the people who liked Halo Wars 2, I don't know. But okay, fine. I can be wrong. Maybe that's true. But the thing that I want us to pay particular attention to is down here where he says, the Banished, and specifically the Brutes, bring this visceral, violent component back to the game. You saw them chasing down Chief in the demo today, and they just provide a different feeling on the battlefield. Well, ask yourself, what is visceral and violent about this? I mean, I could put Lego blocks on his armor. I mean, look at these facial animations. Does any of this scream violent and visceral?
Right.
So, I mean...
Hey, to be devil's advocate, we haven't seen much from the game, and maybe their actions make them more visceral, but
that's
what
I'm hoping.
They're definitely
honestly,
not.
Yeah, they're not very intimidating, and especially for a rated T for teen game, there is only so much they can do. But I'd contend when people argue that in Halo Wars 2, which is a rated T for teen game, Atriox, when he first appears, the Banished leader, who apparently won't be appearing in Halo Infinite so far as we know, he was introduced in a way that was very menacing, daunting, intimidating, and scary, right? Obviously, the people at Creative Assembly know how to introduce a villain. why does 343 Industries own head honchos not know how to do it in their main Halo Infinite game?
Right.
And as this, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Oh shoot, I might have lost my train of thought.
Sorry, man, I'm on a roll.
Oh no, you're good. Shoot, if I remember, I'll bring it back.
Okay.
I had something and then yeah, but
all
it's
I'm
all good.
saying is after this reveal, when we did see the brutes brought back, and again, I talked about this last time, how I'm like, hey, people thought it was a good thing we're fighting brutes again. What's the point if they look like this? And as the quote says, oh, we'll look at it in 4K. It looks much better. Hey, look, the Lego blocks have shadows on them in 4K. But the point is, do you see the bigger picture? Do you see why this isn't okay for Halo? And of course, you have people who were saying, oh, it's a months-old build, which is proven untrue. One of the community managers at Halo, or at 343 Industries on Halo Waypoint, said it's several weeks old, which doesn't mean months or years old like some people were saying. Oh, come on, give them a break. There's a worldwide pandemic. They have months left to work on this. Be positive, everyone. The gameplay looks great. You can read the rest of this, right? The point is, people will still be in denial that, oh, well, Halo is Halo, so even this is good. There's a big difference between a golden egg and a 4-month-old spoiled egg that's been sitting out in the hot sun wrapped in golden tinfoil. An egg isn't always an egg. You get what I'm saying? So that's the point of this slide. And I know I'm getting heated, but what do you have to say?
And oh no, you're okay, bud. I know you're passionate about this, and I want you to be able to speak your mind about it. The one thing I was going to say is it confirmed that Halo Infinite is in fact T for teen? Yes. I know that's probably what they're aiming for. But
no, they are absolutely. It's rated T for teen game.
Okay.
Which makes me worried about the flood, which I didn't even put a couple of slides in that like I should have. But yeah, let's not even talk about the flood. I have very much a concern for how they're going to show the flood, if at all. But the thing is, obviously, as you talked about at the beginning of this, we know that Halo Infinite's been delayed. Well, it's curious how they assure us that, oh, it's tracking, it's good. I know they say this little thing like no release date should be considered final during uncertain times, but when the headline reads, Halo Infinite remains on track during the coronavirus pandemic, and 343 tells us, rest assured that every single one of us is doing everything in our power.
Sorry, and can you just clarify, is this coming from like Halo, or coming from 343's website, essentially?
This is a quote from 343 Industries' Halo Waypoint post itself.
Or the whole thing is, or just the quote?
This quote.
Oh, okay.
This article is from a reputable news source, but the quote is from. This is all confirmed, dude. None of this is speculation. None of this is fluff piece.
Yeah, I guess what I was just saying is when it's when it's another company saying Halo Infinite remains on track during the coronavirus pandemic.
That's
I just
their
wasn't
interpretation
sure if,
of this quote.
Interpretation.
But this is still, again, a major media news outlet for video games.
Right.
When the news is coming out that all is well in the land of Denmark, and then we get this on the right-hand side, like you see, like this article says, it's no coincidence that, hey, this delay was announced after, on August 11th, that everyone, had already been crapping on the games. But the thing is, I didn't show this in the Kiki, Wolfkill, and Frank O'Connor talk. The head developers at 343 Industries, and Ryan Darcy says this too, by the way, the Halo community and the wider audience are two different things. And the wider audience, they believe, is anyone and their grandmother who might pick up a Halo product or service. Whereas the Halo community are people like you and I who have been around the block a few times with Halo and maybe remember a lot of the Bungie games. The point is, they view us, or the people in the Halo community, whether you like 343 or not, we're part of the same Halo community, and they view us as the small but vocal minority that they have to pay particular attention to, or at least so they say. Well, if it's a small but minor vocal minority, whatever, how come everyone and their mother was reporting on how this game doesn't look next gen, it looks like Halo's in a lot of trouble, and ultimately people were left feeling like this. Obviously, this is what I showed you with Ryan Darcy saying they need to stay on the top of trends. That was with Halo 5, but I'm sure that was the case with Halo 4, and that will only continue with Halo Infinite. Case in point are these two memes down here, where we have this weapon, which is the Kvostov rifle from Destiny, which looks a hell of a lot like the Commando, the new weapon from Halo Infinite. And these drop pod brutes look a lot like the drop pod Cabal from Destiny. And yet everyone's going, no, this is fine. This is good. I don't even have to explain this. Don't even get me started on this Phantom. ugh. But hey, maybe I'm a little baby for saying that I wanted Halo to have classic, return to form like we've been asking for a decade at this point. But I guess that's too much to ask. But even if I am a little crybaby over it, it's still not nice of 343 Industries to do this to us. And ultimately, when they say, sorry, that's the best they can do after the most hands-on a Halo game ever, the most development time ever, a rumored highest budget for a Halo game ever, a brand new slipspace engine. I mean, why is this the best they can do? After all this time, it just doesn't make sense. And they haven't been clear to us as to why. If they would just tell us the truth, whether ugly or not, we could probably say, hey, okay, that's a fair enough reason. I understand why this game was so rushed now or something like that, but they refuse to tell us anything. So ultimately, here's what we're left with. Again, it's not just a small vocal minority. They're making the same mistakes in the past, like when they changed the rocket launcher design for Halo 5 Guardians. They changed the design of the pistol for Halo Infinite, and it's replacing any of these guns. I told you before in our last talk about how this just looks generic, and it doesn't look like it belongs in a Halo world, and it could belong in any other world that you put this gun into. Whereas these guns, at least some of them, especially this one and this one, really stand out and seem out of place if you put them in another video game that had guns in it. And it's the same mistake that they made with this rocket launcher from Halo 5. They either don't learn or they don't care. And then Ryan Darcy had that hour-long video about, how his thinking went into designing the Spartan charge and ground pound mechanics for Halo 5 Guardians. Well, they were so unpopular, even though they were based around competitive-based shooters, that they had to be removed by demand from free-for-all playlists, and it took until 2018 for them finally to be removed. So they just don't understand, it seems. Creative directors leaving, that could be nothing, it could be something, but still, Halo is obviously in a decline, and can it make a resurgence? Well, despite all this bad press, they could have one true last hurrah with Halo. At least that's what I would like to believe. Maybe it's a romantic thought, maybe it'll never happen, but I believe that if they really learned from their past mistakes and from Bungie's mistakes as well, they could garner all those years worth of experience and information to make one truly final great Halo game and then end on a high note. But that's, again, my fantasy for what would happen if I was running things. But ultimately, 343 is left with a decision for Halo Infinite. Either they try to cater the game and commit wholly towards appealing the classic Halo fans and the Halo community members at large, which I don't think is the wisest choice, even though it's the one I want. Or they try to commit this game to appealing completely and wholly to the modern Halo fans and the larger audience members. Halo Infinite is, like I talked about last time, trying to do a lot of things. It's a spiritual reboot. It's a return to form with all the iconic moments from, the past Halo games. Like, not just one or two of those, all of the past Halo games will have its most memorable moments and aesthetics built into the game from the ground up, they said, while also moving the franchise in bold new directions and acting as a springboard or platform for the next 10 years of their plan. And it, from day one, reminded me of this saying: the person who chases two hares will catch neither one. But I would at least respect 343's hustle if they would just commit to one or the other. But instead, they're trying to go the middle route and please both camps. And ultimately, they're going to wind up disappointing both, as has been showcased with Halo 5 and Halo 4. But that's all I got to say about that. What do you think? It's not an enviable position, but it's one they put themselves into.
Right. I think, once again, we're coming from the... I'm just going to say, it's not necessarily starting with this question, but it's basically saying, I do think, as far as Halo being this highly respected series amongst gaming, this well-admired series, I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think this is...
What's not gonna be the case?
I don't think Halo will ever be able to reach, like, the admiration it had back in 2004, 2007, 2000.
I think
around
the
that time.
possibility is there, but realistically, feasibly, I agree with you. It's not going to. It's had plenty of time, plenty of chances to do so, and they've made it abundantly clear their intention is not to do that. So I don't think it will happen, but I think it could if the right minds were behind it.
I think the right minds left in 2010.
Yeah, that's what I feel too, bud.
So I think Halo will be profitable. I think Halo will still sell well. It's Halo. It's gonna do well. I mean, I'm gonna be real, Devin. If I hear it's fun, I'll probably check it out because I'm not the campaign guy.
And I'm not going to hate you for it, dude. The multiplayer is even free to play. You can try it out for free if you have Game Pass or whatever. I'm not gonna hate you for liking those games. Our friend Garrett, he would play like Fortnite and whatever else when it was popular. He doesn't really play it anymore, but still, did I think he was a child for playing those games? No, it's just not my cup of tea. But are we able to still be friends? Of course.
If that was the thing.
Is this just something that I don't want to pay into anymore because I don't think it's fun anymore? Right. Yeah. Even if it's free, I still wouldn't want to do it just on principle. Not because I'm trying to stick it to the man, but because I just don't enjoy this anymore, which is sad for me to say as someone who's been a Halo fan for a long time, but it must be said.
So basically what I'm going to say is I think they do want to try and, keep trying to bring in them classic fans and make claim they're making little, oh, come on, come back to Halo. Yeah, come back to Halo. It'll be okay. But as you've kind of demonstrated, they're kind of missing the point that a lot of the hardcore Halo people love about the series. So, and
a lot
it
of the
seems
hardcore at this point might only be a couple million. That's a very small hair to chase compared to the bunch of millions more who comprise the wider audience.
But they want to try and get all the best press they can, so they're gonna try and keep in,
of course,
the more hardcore audience.
They've got to act like they're paying homage to the old ways when they're really, like Fiend said, shitting on the legacy.
And let's be real, Devin. There's going to be a ton of people who complain about Halo, who say all this stuff about Halo, and they're still going to buy it or participate in it.
Me.
Or no, I know not you. I'm not saying you. I'm saying
I raised my hand earlier. That's why I wanted to deny because I didn't agree with that.
But there's people. There's going to be people that complain. There's going to be people that do this.
All these YouTubers
and
who I've seen, and all these people in interviews and things like that, who say, "Yeah, Halo has this problem. Halo Infinite has that problem and that." But I'm still going to buy it. Again, those are those children that I showed earlier that go, "Well, I'm going to pre-order the $250 Super Duper Edition because Halo is Halo." Hey, they can do that. I just don't think very highly of them for doing so, but am I going to ever act on that and write hate mail towards them? No, I don't care. They're free to play whatever game they want. It's their life to live. I'm just saying that's not how I choose to live my life.
And for example, I'm someone who's, on Twitter has retweeted things about another tangent, but the new Mario HD collector, or the Mario 3D All-Stars. I very much would have appreciated it if Nintendo remade the games like they've done with Crash and Spyro and things like that. And I do think just porting it and making it a little nicer and widescreen is a little lazy.
Well, Darren,
but I'm still probably gonna buy it because I want to play Sunshine again.
At least Sunshine and whatever you want to play on that port of old, better games will work, unlike the Master Chief Collection.
Right. So it's one of those things where, I am a bit disappointed with that, and I am critical of that. But I'm still probably going to buy it, just because I do want to play Sunshine. But because my disc is scratched up, so.
Well, great. But let's move on because we're kind of burning Sunshine here.
Sorry. But it's just that sort of thing where it's I complain. I have my criticisms, but then I'm going to buy it. Which is,
Well, if you go to a restaurant and you order a steak and they serve you carrots, you're like, well, okay, it's still food, but this is definitely not what I wanted. Are you still there? Oh, poop. I think it crashed again, Darren.
Hold on.
All right. What's the last thing you heard?
Okay, just start from if you go to a restaurant.
Okay. So what I was saying was, if you go to a restaurant and you order a steak, and this is a really great steakhouse you're used to going to, and they serve you carrots and some mashed potatoes, well, I like carrots and mashed potatoes, but I ordered a steak. Well,
Right.
I'm not going to pay for it anyway, even though I'm calling it out for not being what it says it is, you know? That's because that's the kind of customer I am. If you order steak and you get mashed potatoes and carrots instead, and that's fine with you and you'll still buy it and eat it up, hey, that's just your personal preference. I'm just saying that's not what I'm like. But again, potato patata in this case.
Right.
Or mashed potato patata. Anyway, we were talking a lot about the quality of storytelling and they just don't understand and all this stuff. Here's the thing. If you're making this much money, do you have to care about understanding? I'm going to go through these real quick, but just look at this. Guinness World Records, millions of units sold, comparable to the Bungie days, even if not more. I mean, microtransactions alone for Halo 5 Guardians made $500,000 in the first week of its launch. It's been 5 years. How much money do you think Halo 5 is made out of microtransactions, even if a portion of it went towards their prize pool for the HCS tournament, right? And all the bundles and everything else. Halo 5 obviously made a lot of money. But here's the thing. Microsoft making money, if you look up like quarterly statement earnings and whatnot, they had their hands in a lot more pots than just video games. Granted,
of course,
anything Xbox makes a significant portion of their total net sales, but they're in things from Bing to LinkedIn of all things to generate money. I mean, they're not going anywhere if Halo tanks. Now, the Xbox Games Division part of Microsoft might be in some hot water, but they also have more games than just Halo Infinite. It's just their flagship franchise, as we talked about. So the question ultimately becomes, do you care if you're a 343 about popularity or quality, or is that a hit that you're willing to take if it means you turn Halo, a once renowned piece of art, into a money printing machine?
Yeah, I mean, it does really come down to if they're going to make more money than they made in the Bungie days, like, why would we put in as much effort?
Yeah, why would they think they're doing anything wrong, right? Exactly. They're living off of brand recognition and
1,000%.
But in the meantime, Master Chief is on, you know, essentially like a ventilator kind of thing, just in the meantime, having blood pumped into him. And that's not something anyone wants to see, you know?
Right. Yeah, well, I think that's what Microsoft and 343 want to see, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, any of us fans.
Right.
Oops, I think there are 2 videos that are supposed to pop up here that are not popping
Maybe
up.
just give it a second.
Give it a moment, yeah. Anyway.
I think I might.
Here they come. So, there's so much more I can say, but I'm taking up time. Elizabeth Van Wyck, who helms Halo's operations and esports focus, confirms that Halo 6's multiplayer, like Halo 5, is being built with esports in mind. That means microtransactions. Well, here's what microtransactions is going to mean according to Bungie, and what it's going to mean according to 343.
Okay.
So just a moment, you'll see what I'm saying. So on the left is going to be what 343 thinks of microtransactions.
Competition. Competitive as possible. Very competitive. Really competitive. Competitive.
Oh, you're opening up a pack.
Animating. Someone make sound effects.
Mongoose, Needler, Ghost, Fuel Rod Cannon.
Yes.
All the details are
I love it. That's fantastic.
That's fantastic, right? For opening a rec pack. Well, here's what a Bungie employee himself has to say about the inclusion of microtransactions in a Halo game.
Right.
680 hours to unlock the cosmetics in the game.
About before. Microtransactions in Halo, they got no place in the game. They're just solely based on greed, and Microsoft shouldn't be supporting that. And I'm ashamed that they are. It's got no place in our franchise, and they should cut them out of there. I can make a business case as to why that would be so, and maybe I'll write a blog post about it. But I don't.
Hardy Level, a lead designer of Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 2, is saying they don't belong in our franchise. But here's how the kids receive it.
So this is a really awesome rec pack, and it was a lot of fun to open.
This is from the GameStop. This is their pre-order bonuses, and I think this is one of my favorite pre-order bonuses in any game ever.
Did you hear that? You can just hear by the tone of his voice that this is some kid who's bought by these rec packs. Hey, to them, he says it's the most fun I've ever had opening a microtransaction, a pre-order bonus in a game ever. So regardless of whether it fits the mold of Halo, people eat it up. And as long as people keep buying it's going to keep staying in Halo.
Yeah. Now, the one part of your argument that does before you get into this.
I know, I'm just going to load it while you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay, so why do you say esports of all things leads to microtransactions? I didn't really get how you got.
Yeah, let me explain the connection with Halo 5 Guardians.
Okay.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. With Halo 5 Guardians, the Halo Championship Series, competitive, whatever, esports focused multiplayer series that they had, the tournament, I guess you'd call it, was directly tied to microtransactions, especially after the game's release, when the top 8 teams or whatever were finalized in the tournament. In Halo 5 Guardians, you can buy weapon skins that were cosmetic only, but they were for a price, and the price went towards your favorite team or whatever. But I'm sure some of the price of the microtransactions for Toxic Gaming, Magnum skin or whatever would also go towards 343 Industries. I'm just saying,
right?
And hence to Microsoft in the long run. The point is, when you have esports, you have teams, right? And a way to support those teams is, as 343 has realized, through microtransactions. It's an advertisement and help to keep awareness. It's all in good fun because you're supporting your favorite team, right? You buy a $80 Seattle Seahawks jersey because you like the Seahawks or something, right? That's what you do. But in video games, again, the makers of the original Halo say that is never what we wanted. But I said a lot of things that Marty O'Donnell has talked about. He quantifies people. He says there are 2 types of people in this world. There are the exploiter types, and there are the creatives. Now, you might think... What?
Oh, sorry. You said this is the musician, right? The composer?
Marty O'Donnell is more than just a musician to Halo. He has saved Halo a couple of times. And that's not me just exaggerating or fanboying. Joe Staten and Jason Jones admit that themselves in developer commentaries. And he is an amazing composer of music. Yes. The music I was playing on guitar earlier, that was inspired by him and all that. So the point is, he has some fantastic creative juices flowing, let's say. So here's what he has to say about corporations during a conference in 2014.
You'll never make a living doing that, whatever it is, drawing monsters, playing games, playing music, dancing, whatever it is. It's you'll never make a living doing that, and it beats it out. It beats the creativity out of people. And the corporate world also beats creativity out of people. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and also I think you'll see that I tend to improvise when I'm speaking. So that's just my style, and it's the way I stay creative. My mother was a piano teacher. My father was a film director, so I grew up in a household that valued creativity. And the reason I have this slide up right now is this is my view from my deck at my house. That's Puget Sound. That's Whidbey Island.
Okay. Pay attention to what he says at around
sold at least one painting. So anyway, just make sure that you're making money, because then it teaches you a lesson on. And here's the thing: it's not like the people who make the most money at being creative are the best creatives.
That's entirely the point. You still there, Darren? Oh boy.
Hey everybody, my computer had an issue. Hopefully I can get that figured out someday. But basically my computer crashed, so we have to splice the footage back together. So Devin, back to Marty O'Donnell's quotes.
Anyway, Marty O'Donnell said this about staying creative: stay alive, ship, make money. So obviously, even Bungie isn't blind to the fact that it is a business. You're in the business of entertainment, and making money is important. However, listen to this. Oh, I need to share the.
Because then you know.
Did you hear that last bit?
Not quite. Also, I'm double check.
Yeah, let me make sure I put share. Yep, share computer sound. It just took a moment. You ready?
Yeah. Microsoft.
Teaches you a lesson.
Yeah, we're good to go.
And here's the thing. It's not like the people who make the most money at being creative are the best creatives. But it does teach you as a person who's trying to be creative that you're on the right track.
So that's, I think, something we should all take heed with when talking about how much money Halo has made. Just because Halo's been more profitable than ever under 343 Industries doesn't mean they're the best creators when it comes to Halo. So again, it depends entirely how you judge success. I guess if this doesn't crash your computer again, there is one last thing that I would like to hear. There's plenty, a lot of this is gold, but if anything, there's something here that I think I mentioned earlier.
Sure.
It's nothing on your end, Devin. My computer's just having issues.
Play, things we watch.
Oh, hang on. I got to start that again.
We're all inundated by things we love, games we play, things we watch. You can't be not influenced by culture. But if you find yourself just copying culture, you will not. That is not creativity. That's just parroting. So,
and that's what I said earlier. So, one last thing.
You get to make games for a living. You're not curing cancer. You're not solving world peace. But, this is really cool. You're doing something you can take seriously, but don't take it too seriously.
This is really cool. You're making games that people play in their spare time, but you have to be cognizant of that. Don't take it too seriously. Don't try to cure cancer with this. Don't use this as a platform to promote social justice issues or diversity, which is all things that I've proven that 343 Industries obviously cares about. But they'll tell you themselves in the next slide. Lastly, he says some things about how to recognize when something just isn't fresh anymore.
Yeah.
So here we go. I just had to look at what timestamp it had to play what I wanted to play. Again, this whole speech is packed full of Marty O'Donnell goodness. So I would watch it if anyone is interested in Halo or just being creative in general.
We're here. And I'm also the voice director, so I get to direct all the voices. As audio director, I really have decided it's like my fault. Everything that comes out of the speakers should be my fault. But I have a team of guys who I know this probably doesn't sound like I do, but I do give them credit. See Paul Johnson.
Hang on.
Killing the games industry. So I was like, okay.
All right, here we go.
No worries.
But he made up for it because he blamed everybody, so that's fine. But after 17 years in games and doing 10 years of Halo, it started to not be fresh anymore. So it was a good thing when Bungie, number one, we got out of Microsoft, which is great. I love Microsoft. They helped kill the game industry. I don't know if you noticed that. But so did Activision, so there you go.
So, like he says, it was already getting stale and not fresh anymore. And even one of the lead people working on Halo recognized that on their way out 10 years ago. So this is this is a piece of really juicy meat at one point, but it's been bitten off of, and some other stuff has fallen on it, and it's been sitting outside rotting for 10 years, and people are going to still bite into it. Not me. So anyway, let me just get this up to date here. Maybe it'll help with some of the latency issues we're having, because we are quite a ways down here. We're almost at the end, I promise.
You're all good, buddy.
So lastly, or one of the last things I wanted to say. Oops, come on, catch up. All right. One of the last things here is Marty O'Donnell himself just told us in the slide before this one that, you are not trying to cure cancer or solve world peace issues. This is a cool thing you're doing in making video games, but don't take it too seriously. And to that, 343 Industries has their own rebuttal, which is, yeah, we're going to try to solve world peace with this. Just listen to what they have to say.
We've granted over 25 Make-A-Wish visits, and that's something that's so humbling for us.
Right here, I've got Anuj. Anuj, say hi to everybody.
Hi.
We want everyone who plays Halo to feel like a hero. And since the creation of 343 Industries, it's been our goal to include more diverse voices and more diverse heroes in the universe we build. Together, those unique voices will lead us to infinite and beyond.
We now have the tools to bring this world and universe to life in a way that we only dreamed of with Halo 4. And when I look at where we're going with Infinite, it does feel like we're just getting started.
Feels like we're just getting started. And Make-A-Wish foundations, I mean, they're using these children as virtue signaling scapegoats for them. That's not something I necessarily admire them for. Hey, I think it's great that they promote diversity in the workplace. We can use some more of that to a degree. I admire the fact that they make Make-A-Wish Foundation visits. You know,
Right.
I certainly don't do that. You know, it's great that they donate so much of what they do to charity. It's so, you know, that's fantastic that they try to show women, hey, it's okay to want to be an engineer. That's not just a thing that only guys can do. Hell, I was a teacher for a while, which is predominantly a female job historically, right? There are male nurses. You know, that's great. But a video game didn't have to teach me that. It's not because of a video game that was common sense. It's great that you can use that platform to, you know, imbue it with your own, I guess, social agenda. But again, like Marty said, you're not solving world peace or curing cancer here. You're making a video game. So make the best darn game you can so that you can make money off of it. Instead, they realized at 343 Industries, hey, if we virtue signal that we're curing cancer or solving world peace issues, we don't need to actually make the best video game possible. We just need to make more of ourselves, like a virus.
Yeah, so I guess my point on that, I will echo, I do think that's cool that they are doing the Make-A-Wish Foundation thing, and they are, you know, they are trying to make everything more diverse. But
at what cost?
Well, it's not even that. It's like when it comes to the Make-A-Wish Foundation thing, I mean, yeah, they're a business, so they're gonna flaunt about that. But it would almost be better if they didn't kind of announce that they
were
did that.
humble about it, right? Like they had something so cool, like an awesome Halo trilogy under their name that we're like, wow, I want to know more about these people behind the games. Oh, these people give to charity? I did some digging to find that out. They're very humble about it, but that's awesome that they do that low key and don't try to gloat about it to try to appeal to investors or whatever. I mean, that's I agree with you, man. If you really are so humble to be part of this Halo experience, why do you gloat?
Right. So at least from the charity standpoint, and I mean, I get them. I do kind of get them, you know, promoting that. Hey, we are trying to make everything more diverse, because that is where we are right now, and every company is kind of, you know, doing that. Or you know, if they don't, people will probably go after them. Let's be honest. Yeah. So I get that. But the charity thing seems a little like
over the top, right?
Like, yeah, why didn't you just? But
it's
to
a
be
distraction
fair,
from the fact that they can't seem to make a good Halo game in the past 10 years.
I guess, yeah, because when I'm thinking about it, like I imagine Nintendo, but you know, Nintendo's the one I pay attention to the most. I imagine they do, you know, some sort of Make-A-Wish thing or some sort of stuff like that. But you never see it in their, like, Nintendo Direct, you know? It's... I could be wrong. Nintendo might not do anything. Sure. Doubtful. I feel like most big companies do, but...
I don't know, but you can call me racist if you want, but I feel like Japanese people traditionally have been people who are more humble. You know, they tend to have that sort of like unspoken honor code about them. I'm not saying every Japanese person is like this, but like especially Nintendo, a primarily Japanese company. I know there's Nintendo of America and of Europe and all that, but like
yeah, I was gonna say even Nintendo of America for the most part.
They all have their central messaging focus from Nintendo of Japan, and it spreads out to their other companies. And I think that's part of their culture is to be humble in their charity. And obviously, we here in America, I guess, follow a different path with 343 Industries, and I can't say I'm too fond of it.
It's kind of like when people, when they're like, I gave money to a homeless man, and then I made a video about it, you know? And it's like, you should have just given the money to the homeless man,
and then not gloated. Look,
try to make yourself look great because of it,
But
it
here's
should
the
have
thing.
been to help
As a
them.
consumer of Halo products, I know this sounds cynical, but I quite frankly don't give a damn how much you give to charity. If it, I care about the games you make. I care about even the novels you make as well, and the transmedia stuff. Obviously, that's the stuff that I've been talking about this whole presentation. I know it sounds cynical and cruel of me to not care, to say that I don't care about charity stuff, but again, like Marty says, that's not what I'm here interested in Halo for. It's great that you guys are at 343 Industries, and I'm not telling you to stop it. I'm telling you to not make it a priority goal and to not flaunt it as avidly as you do, as aggressively as you do, because it sends the wrong message, even though what you're trying to send is an innocuous right message. It really, it backfires. So I guess my whole point, Darren, is this famous Italian film director, Robert Rossellini, said something that I think sums up my opinion on this, right? I'm not saying these things just to be a crybaby. I'm trying to bring something to light. I don't think I would go so far as to call this evil, but these are problems. And I think these problems need to be shed to light or brought to light. And if I'm the only squeaky wheel who's going to shed the light on this, I don't care if I get the grease for it in that idiomatic, in that sense, that phrase, in that phrase's context. I think that addressing and identifying a problem where it exists and then being able to appropriately address it does pave the way for us to tackle the next problem and to have the current one no longer really be an issue. So I think that's, in a sense, like Robert Rossellini says, a form of optimism. I'm not part of like cancel culture. I know I've said before that I want Halo to end, but obviously if it keeps going on, like I said, I'm a 26-year-old man. I got other things I can care about. But because for 20 out of my 26 years of life, I've been caring about Halo, it is hard for me to let go of, I will admit. And, I'm not entirely blinded by nostalgia. I'm a little bit, but not entirely. I can be objective enough, like I've mentioned periodically throughout this thing. It's not just me. There are plenty of other people who also objectively realize that Halo has changed, and part of the ways in which it has changed is problematic. And I think that it's a good thing for us to call them out on it, to try to address those changes. But if they don't ever, well, like I said, Microsoft ain't going to lose or go bankrupt anytime soon. 343 Industries will probably be just fine with Halo Infinite. I just don't think it'll be a good Halo game, like many people are in denial that it will be. And I just think that should be brought to light. So lastly, and this is the final slide, I promise. At the beginning, I put a Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy quote where, we asked, did Halo, or, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain? Well, I think these last two things really sum up, exactly that. So ask yourself, after all that I've said and done here in this presentation, did Halo really die, or is it still alive and is the villain that's killing its own self?
Gotcha.
So let's start today with the first Halo game. Thank you, that's right. That's where I want to hear the applause. Built from the ground up for Xbox One, and the game that fulfills both the promise of the Halo universe and the power of Xbox One. Master Chief, hero or traitor?
Uh-ohs. I think it's because I started two videos at once. There we go.
Spartan lock, friend or foe?
Two
Epic
videos.
World, epic battles, epic scale. This is Halo 5 Guardians.
And how epic it turned out to be, right?
So can you go back in that clip, because I think some of that didn't come through in the in my audio.
Well,
you know.
All right. Well, I'll do it again. Hang on. Stupid. I'll put it about halfway. Tell me if you need it more.
Power of Xbox One. Master Chief, hero or traitor? Spartan
Or just like right there. Yeah, right at that point.
Or foe? Epic worlds, epic battles, epic scale. This is Halo 5 Guardians.
And we all know just how quote-unquote epic that turned out to be. But lastly, let's leave you with this.
The only thing worse than losing a hero is watching them turn against us.
The only thing worse than losing a hero is watching them turn against us. We made it to the end, and it only took 5.5 hours this time.
Well, you know, there was technical stuff and everything like that. There were stops.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, again, there's so much I glossed over, so many different other things I could have said, and there's still so much more I want to talk about because I barely touched on Halo Infinite, but still, I guess what I'm saying is, all in all, I honestly believe that Halo has far outlived its shelf life, and even Bungie knows this. So, with the recent news of them bringing
Bungie
back...
or 343?
Even Bungie knew this at the time that they were departing from Microsoft.
Yeah, okay.
343 Industries, they either know it and don't care because they keep making money, and to them, that is how they gauge success, or they simply are oblivious to it. And I don't think they're I don't think they're so stupid of people that they're blind to it. I just think they're really good, as Marty O'Donnell would say, exploitive types. There are creatives working there as well, I'm sure, and some of them might be a little bit of both, but for the most part, I think overall the direction it's going in is, well, we care more about Halo making money because contractually under Microsoft, our agreement was to just keep making more Halo after Bungie left. And in that end, they have been successful. And the Halo they've been making has been bringing in money. So when you take the human factor out of it, they're doing a fantastic job at 343. But I will
just
never...
from like a numbers perspective. Yeah.
Exactly. But being a human being who's been with this franchise and seen how much it's changed, can't help but think the opposite. And so Halo, in my opinion, has lived far too long, and we've seen it become the villain. And I don't think that's going to change with Halo Infinite. And seeing as how the last 10 years brought us Halo 4, the Master Chief Collection, Halo 5, Halo Wars 2 even, the next 10 years that's been proposed as the roadmap from Halo Infinite going forward, I don't think will be much better. I think it's going to be more of the same, more generic, and I can't imagine me being 36 years old and Halo still being around. I mean, at some point, all good things must come to an end. All that's, gold can't stay. It's gotta, and there's nothing wrong with letting something end ceremoniously, I just think, kind of like Marty said, you have to realize when something's just not fresh anymore. And then what do you do about it? It's just, those aren't the people who are behind 343 Industries. Those aren't the people behind Microsoft. So I've said my piece and then more, even though there's so much more I could say.
I gotcha. I don't know. I think Halo is going to be around, personally, until Microsoft finds its next big thing. First Microsoft has
soon.
I mean that they are, doing all those
acquisitions.
So maybe they'll find something. But when something is tied to the immediate success of your gaming brand, like Halo is as tied to Xbox as Mario is tied to Nintendo.
Mario or Zelda or Donkey Kong or any other of the Nintendo franchises you can think of, Kirby. I mean, it's all directly tied. The thing is, Nintendo has multiple mascots, like I mentioned.
Right.
PlayStation, hey, they might have had some changing ones over the years, And maybe they don't
Right.
have like one definitive one right now, but like I mentioned in our last talk, they have Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. They have Miles Morales from Spider-Man. They have a couple, and even like you said, Crash Bandicoot at one point was kind of like their mascot, you know?
Right.
Xbox has really only had Halo as far as the
Halo
Master Chief and
like
Gears,
Gears.
but like
Yeah.
both of those are at this point roughly
Well-
20-year-old franchises, and they're on the decline with the latest games as
I
far
mean,
as
now
popularity.
Now it could be argued Minecraft, obviously.
Minecraft,
But-
random
but-
Forza car, but those don't make necessarily good, you know, mascots.
None of
player,
they're more like generic. It would be like if the Mii was Nintendo's mascot, almost.
exactly.
You know,
and some of these things are like third-party developed things too. I don't know if Cyberpunk is coming to the PlayStation or not, but maybe the Samurai
I'm sure
guy
it is.
from I don't know.
No, that's yeah. No, that is Cyberpunk. I think is coming to Xbox and PlayStation.
Okay,
It's a
good.
multi-platform thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was Xbox exclusive, it would be a way bigger deal.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
Yeah. So for Microsoft, can they find something else? Well, I guess that's up to
Only
the people
time
to
will
decide.
tell.
Yeah. Are they pushing for something else to become their big mascot?
I would hope
I don't
so.
know. I don't. I mean, if Halo is doing these numbers, which is what
What they care about. Uh-oh. You cut out again. Darren! No! Anyway.
Okay. So I remember what I was talking about. First off, there was another glitch.
In the Matrix.
Okay. But basically what I was saying is I personally do think that Halo will last. Whether it be the only way I see Halo going away is if the Xbox brand itself goes away. You know?
Well, like Phil Spencer said, if we lose our way with the Xbox IP, we lose our way with the Halo IP, we lose our way with Xbox.
Right.
And he has a point, but it all depends on your view of what losing your way means, as I've made clear at this point. I've beaten it over the head, so I won't say it again. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right as well. Halo's probably going to still be around. I just don't know if I want to see it around 10 years down the road. You know?
Right. And you know, I mean, yeah, it's I personally, unless something really changes, maybe they change developers again, which I don't see happening.
No. Frank O'Connor, Bonnie Ross, and Kiki Wolfkill, and some others have all been in power since 343's foundation, because they were some of the key members that helped found it in the first place. They had to build a new studio. They had to all this and that, the other. I don't think their job security is in question here, as much as I'd like it to be. I don't wish any like bodily harm or anything, but I definitely wish a couple of them would lose their jobs, or at least be demoted or temporary suspended, something.
So here's something interesting. And, you know, maybe Japanese business is different from American business, which
I know about how they took a slash in salary and all that when the Wii U failed or whatever.
No. It's not that. So this is actually parallel to Street Fighter. So Street Fighter, there was this guy named Ono, I believe. And he's been the head since Street Fighter. He's been the head since like Street Fighter 4, or you know he rapidly went up. And, you know, Street Fighter 4 helped bring back fighting games. Like fighting games had a real drought back then. So Street Fighter 4 was praised. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was praised. But then after that,
finally that genre had a fighting chance.
Anyway, when Capcom, you can watch Maximilian's video about Ono and everything. But basically, time after time again, you know, they were losing their way with the Street Fighter crowd, which admittedly is a much smaller crowd than Halo. So
is
their
it?
fandom,
I wouldn't know.
Numbers wise, I'm absolutely sure it is.
Okay, I take your word for it.
But constantly, you know, people complained about the decisions that were made, and you know, basically Ono in Japan, they don't force you, they never fire you, but they just kind of keep demoting you, pushing you into a corner until
finally
basically
he
you're forced to
Ono'd
leave.
up to it. All right, I'm done.
Okay. But yeah, watch Maximilian's video because he has more. He has
Well, what does this have to do with
a greater
Halo,
focus?
though?
Well, basically, what I'm saying is, if there's all this backlash, if there's all this, if Halo Infinite does fall flat on its face and it ends up performing not well, Microsoft will definitely take notice, I think. If the numbers aren't there. Now,
Well,
the thing is,
look
the
at
numbers
Josh Holmes
will...
and Brian Reed. I mean, those people for Halo 4 and Halo 5 respectively, coincidentally resigned, or I don't know if they were straight up fired, but they were no longer working at 343 Industries after those games didn't perform as expected. But again, it's not even necessarily their fault all the time. They're just the scapegoats for the bigger issue. And those are the people who are in the higher positions of leadership, which don't seem to take much accountability or responsibility for the choices they directly signed off on and were in charge of. If you're going to be paid the extra bucks to be the head honcho, if your team does a fantastic success, yes, the credit is partially yours, but most good leaders will say it's a team effort. We all did it together. If the game or the mission or whatever it is fails, it's on you. A captain who's asleep in their private quarters, if their ship crashes while they're asleep, it is that captain that gets fired. I'm not saying that the military is the same or should be the same, but accountability is still accountability.
Well,
I'm not saying that they should be like fired or something as nearly as punitive as the UCMJ or anything like that. But it's not. It's still disrespectful or it just doesn't seem right to have leaders get away scot-free when they mess up consistently and so magnanimously.
And I think what it'll ultimately come down to, I think you're talking about those guys were at 343.
Who have been there the whole time,
but they weren't the actual head honchos at 343.
Yeah, they were.
Or I thought you were saying they were
as high as you can get. And
no, the people who were fired.
Oh yeah, like Josh Holmes, he was in a high position. Don't get me wrong,
right?
But, and same thing with Brian Reed. Well, relatively, I don't know exactly, but still, those people, yes, they were used as scapegoats. But go on.
Right. So if Halo performs poorly in Microsoft's eyes, if Microsoft steps in and then gets the head guys out of 343, that's really the only way. Even though they were handpicked by Microsoft,
I don't think that's gonna happen though.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, when there has been a lot of negative feedback, which, admittedly, as someone who views Halo very casually, Infinite has had the most blowback out of any Halo that I've seen from 343. If it doesn't perform how Microsoft wants it to perform, they're gonna look at them. I think though they might not be fired, they might be demoted, but they.
Darren, I hope you're right, but it's been X amount of years through blowback that already has been confirmed. Like, again, worst AAA title ever. That is something that will live with Bonnie Ross and her cronies for the rest of their lives after they're gone from game development. If that isn't enough to make Microsoft do what you said and step in and make heads roll or something like that, I don't know what will. I get what you're saying and where you're coming from. But here's the thing. We mentioned earlier that some of the most recent news is like Joe Staten and Certain Affinity and some other people who were, previous like old guard Bungie developers. And people have been working on the Master Chief Collections multiplayer and so on and so forth. They're coming on board. The way I like to think of it is like, all right, they were once the captain of this Halo ship, right? Well, since they saw that the ship was, already had some creeks in it and just wasn't seaworthy, they decided to jump ship, right? Well, a new captain was put aboard because this ship was transporting some very precious cargo. And these new captains and first mates and whatever ran the ship aground and it's on fire and sinking. And despite that, they try to bring back the old captain, make him a second in command, not the new captain. He's not replacing anyone. He's only helping out. And at this point, even if he's the best damn captain on Earth, the ship is still on fire, run aground, and partially sunk. There's no salvaging the ship. There's just landing that plane that's on fire a little bit more gracefully. And to his credit, Joe Staten has worked under similar conditions during like the development of Halo 2 and still managed to make a pretty good game overall. But it wasn't just him. It was a group of like-minded people working together. If he doesn't have his group of like-minded people together around him at this point in development, with Halo coming out sometime next year, even if it's a full year, Kingdom Hearts 3, a game which was developed for 13 years or was 13 years in the waiting or whatever, we got a preview of it 2 years before it came out. It did not drastically change between 2018 and 2020 or whatever it came out, the 2-year interstitial period. God of War for the PlayStation, the newest one, we saw 2 years before it released, gameplay and all. It did not change all that much. I don't think Halo is going to change that drastically like it needs to between now and then. Even with Joe Staten.
So I get what you're saying. I don't think you gotta remember, take your head out of the Halo fan base.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just coming from a guy who is very casually into Halo.
Yeah.
I know the Master Chief Collection had its issues, and that could have been strike one towards them. Definitely.
Well, at that point, it was more like strike 3 for a lot of people, but whatever.
Right. Well, take your head
out
of the Halo fan base. As someone who very casually peruses Halo, Halo Infinite seems to be the one that most people are all up in arms about. And I think the blowback is from a much wider audience
this time.
This time than the Master Chief Collection. And also, this one hasn't come out yet, so we haven't even seen the full blowback.
Exactly. I might eat crow, and it might be the best damn Halo game ever. And if it is, I will openly admit it and sing it from the mountains.
That's not even what I'm saying. I'm saying if this is a disaster, which I think at first people will play it, of course. But if this is a disaster, I do think that the leadership roles could definitely be changed. But it comes to that point of if the outcry is much more than it was with the Master Chief Collection. Because I think people, like even myself, when it came to the Master Chief Collection, they were still getting the Halo experiences that were beloved to them. And
eventually.
Yes, eventually.
And those Halo experiences were the older Bungie-made games.
Right, of course. So when it comes to this, and, people are like, on 4, on 5, this might be the one where it's like, okay, we gave them their shots. This is where fans might start outcrying more, and the general public might start outcrying more, depending on how Halo is.
You know what's funny
depending on how Infinite is.
You know what's funny about what you just said, though, Darren? If you go back to and I'm just talking about YouTube videos here, but comment sections on news articles that were published electronically and whatnot, you'll find much of the same. There are people saying this is 343's last chance for 10 years.
Yep.
I get what you're saying. You're like, oh, maybe this will be the one. But I don't think Halo Infinite's going to be as disastrous as you're probably thinking. And this is my head out of the... At first, I was very convinced that Halo Infinite was going to sell like hotcakes because it was originally slated to release in, now we know, November, which is peak consumerism time with like Black Friday and leading into Christmas. It was going to be debuted alongside this new Xbox Series X console, which hasn't been done since Halo Combat Evolved. Most amount of budget put into it, new slipspace engine, all this other stuff. Halo is still going to sell fantastically well, especially with the multiplayer being free to play. At least that's my prediction. I could be wrong, but so far, I still think Halo's not going to be a disaster as far as sales numbers, or maybe as far as total net cash sales, or however they judge their success metrics. My point is that it's still not going to be a great Halo game, and in that sense, it will flop. But that doesn't matter. And because it doesn't matter to Microsoft or to 343, as long as it's still a well-selling first-person shooter with the Halo moniker attached to it, no one's heads are going to roll. No one's jobs are in any. Even if the fans do outcry, they've made it clear since like 2012 that they view the small but vocal minority as, you know, and like you said, it's not just a small vocal minority this time, but they'll still probably.
That's what I'm saying. Is it's not just the hardcore Halo fan base.
It's a small group of people who are really, fat losers in their mom's basement who are angry.
That's not what I'm saying. But if a broader audience does complain about the game, which maybe they will, who knows? It depends on the final product. If more people outcry, then there might be.
But Darren,
change.
They donate to charity. But Darren, look at their cute pug in our field recording videos. But Darren, you can't fire us. We're so cherubic and innocent and awesome. We empower women. Do you really want to fire us?
I think when push comes to shove, a big corporate entity will make the moves they need. But that's only if it performs poorly.
I agree, but I don't think it's going to perform as poorly as that. I think
as you want it to be.
Much to my chagrin, I still think Halo Infinite is going to sell fantastically well. And like you said, it might still exist for 10 more years.
I definitely think even if like they change leadership or whatever, that Halo boat ain't sinking. Not as long as Xbox itself is around.
Even though, in one sense, it's already sunk. And that's why, like, the news about Joe Staten coming on board, hey, that's great and all. I'm sure he will only help this game at this point. But what can he feasibly do in the position in which he was hired? You know, on top of which, if he's the only voice of reason amongst a crowd of people who just don't get Halo or don't care about it like maybe Joe did in his original Bungie days, like what's the point? You know, it's a little too late for 343 Industries to be bringing those big guns on board. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Recent news has come out that I actually want to talk about that's really cool. This will just be brief, but there's been some I know we're running on time. There's been some character art for a new elite that looks badass. He's got all black and red armor, and his plasma energy sword blade is red, which is something that's like so cool. And there's going to be a day and night cycle in Halo Infinite. So what if this elite stalks you at night? Like, he's in added danger, so that if you put a day and night cycle into Halo Infinite, so what? Other games have had this.
Right.
But if you make it interesting to where, hey, during the day you might be relatively safe and enemies might be staggered a certain way, but it's eerily calm and silent. And there's this plasma elite, or there's this invisible elite, this new headhunter, and the only sign you'll see that he's coming is an audio cue of him unsheathing his red glowing plasma sword. And if you're not careful, if you're ditzing around for too long, maybe he one hit kills Master Chief if you're playing at a level at night. Like, that would be an added element that would be so cool. And the design for him from the concept art looks awesome. So I don't know, that's probably just a headcanon fantasy. If I were designing the game, what I would go for. But and the engineers and designers would probably hate me for trying to have to program all that into the game. But still, I mean, Halo needs all the help it can get. I think this is just one cool idea. But oftentimes, concept art doesn't always pan out the way you think it might. Like, there was concept art for the Didact returning for Halo 5 on the officially published concept art for that game. It never happened. Now, this guy's confirmed to be part of the banished legion you fight against in Halo Infinite, but still, is he going to play that role that I mentioned? Is he going to really be a huge part? Is he going to be one of the cool designs but lackluster story elements? Like, is he just another baddie? I don't know. But with Joe Staten on the team, I am more confident that maybe this guy will be better because of it. So there are some pockets of light and hope in between all this, but for the most part, Halo Infinite doesn't seem to be doing so hot. And again, all is not well in the Kingdom of Denmark. And I just want to know why. But they're not telling us why, and they're just delaying the game. And where we used to have a rough estimate for holiday 2020, we ran out of holidays, so we're like, well, it's either going to be the last or the penultimate holiday in 2020. Now it's just 2021. We're getting less
yeah.
and less specific as time goes on with this game, and we want specifics more because of that. What is going on with Halo Infinite? No one seems to know, but we'll find out eventually, and let's just hope to God it's drastically different from what we saw on July 23rd of this year. But will it be? I don't know, man. I just don't think it will.
That's not a lot of turnaround time when it comes to game development, especially on something as big as Halo.
And a lot of the stuff that's already in place is still going to be there, let's be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
One last thing.
But
I just want to play...
Okay.
So
do you want this to be the 20 seconds where
the outro?
Yeah, where the stuff pops up?
Yeah. You ready?
Yeah. I will.
Say
I guess
your
I
thing.
won't time it.
Say your thing,
okay.
and then I'll.
Oh, okay. So everybody, if you made it through this Frankenstein's podcast,
this is arguably the worst, most hodgepodge put together. How much time do you think this will take total? How much time did we spend recording? Do you think it's been since we started?
Well, we started at 8:30,
and it's
maybe.
what 2?
It's 2. So could be
that...
longer. I think it is going to be longer than the last one, especially after all the having to recover what we already said because of the technical difficulties.
To keep it shorter than 4.5 hours. What the hell?
When I saw it was 45 slides, I gave up. I was like, this is not.
When I timed rehearsing it just by myself, it was 45 minutes, on the dot. So I don't...
Well, I don't know. I mean, I did interject at times, and that would
And we had plenty of issues that hindered us along the way. But you know what? It was a journey I would take again.
Yeah, I'll try to. I might edit in the videos where they, show up a little cleaner on my side.
Sure.
But actually, some of it's going to be your capture, so maybe that showed up smoother than on mine. We'll see. Yeah. But anyway, if you made it through this video, thanks for watching, guys. I very much appreciate it, and
I do too.
Yeah, and Devin does appreciate it as well. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share this 6-hour video with your friends, or maybe maybe with your good Halo buddies. Put it on the background. But anyway, thank you so much, guys, and I hope you have a great day. Devin wishes you have a great day, I hope. And Devin is gonna play something, and yeah, and then that'll be it. You're good. Go.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
That's good.
Thanks, everybody. Yay! That was good.
Yay, Halo. All right. I'm going to stop recording.
All right. 3, 2, 1, and...